God damn it. Infected. Oh, damn it. You are so annoying. Now, you don't want to join me on this one, right?
Unless if you need me.
No, I don't
I'm
need you,
harvesting
but
right now.
I'm just saying you won't get credit if you're out of range. Is all I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I don't mind. Go ahead. It's
All right.
just tier ones. They don't matter.
Okay, I was just making sure.
I'm just doing the relaxed harvesting cars thing right now.
Somebody just rode by. I know that was you. Was that you? Something was like way up the road.
You committed suicide?
Yeah, I got an infection, and we don't have anything. I'd rather deal with it now than like fuck out on you later, you know? And get over the recovery by the time day rises. To me, it's like prevention. Because if I get too infected, I'll die like mid-run or whatever, you know? I think I'm gonna relog because I have like all these jumbled numbers in the bottom right corner of my screen instead of where loot should be. Some kind of error, so I'm gonna like relog real quick. Nice, I got my Galente. Nice, nice. I'm back up to 5 bill and I haven't even sold the large skill injectors. It's good. Doing real good. 5 billion is, bitch. Yeah. anytime soon. Well, I think I get cacio e pepe for dinner. Okay, back in. Ooh, it's almost dawn. Nice. 3 a.m. Guess I'll chop trees because I don't really want to go very far. Or, I don't know, maybe clay. Clay might be a good idea. Do you care where I dig clay at? My shovel is gone now. Why? Why is my shovel gone? No. Maybe I blew up my shovel by mistake somehow. No, where's my shovel? No, I had a level 2 shovel. Don't punish me like this. No. 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 God damn it. Ooh, weighted head mod. Melee weapons tools have a chance to stun and slow. Nice machetes do not have a head that can be weighted. Stun and slow. Well, I want you. Oh no, I have to like make a shovel? Really? I don't want to make a shovel. You're so dumb. Where did my shovel go? I just had it. Oh, I feel robbed. I don't want to make a shovel right now. You're so annoying. Wood, plant fibers, and stone. Stone, wood. Plant fiber. Where's the plant fiber? There. Now make me a stone shovel. Damn it, I had a T2 shovel till you fucked me. You fucked me with this. You fucked me. Damn it. You fucked me on the shovel thing. It's so annoying. You fucked me on this shovel thing.
Trader Rec is now open. We got food and wares, if you got the money.
All right.
What if you drink all the coffee? I'll kill you.
I got, oh yeah. Ooh, my bicycle. Yes. Opening trade routes.
Well, come to think of it, let's get one thing straight.
I'm sorry, what's
You're
that?
not working with me.
I thought you
You're
would be
working
like
for
way
me.
behind and you wouldn't be able to get the bicycle.
No, I think they changed it. It's just they don't make you do it anymore. Like, they don't make you do it up front, but you do have to do it. That's right, they make you do it, but they don't. It doesn't matter when.
Bye. Or
But no, I got all the
bye.
credit for the thing. I think, yeah. There's a list now of everything you have to do to like get through tier 2 or tier 1 or whatever it is. I don't know where I saw it, but it's here. Yeah, in the quests, there's like there's like things that you have to do to satisfy reaching the bicycle, and it doesn't really say what it is, but you can see a list of all of it. Oh, thank God, bicycle's so good. $2,100 Dukes. They're adding third person. That's gonna be fucking amazing. Yes, and then there's the biome tab now. Oh, I have to craft like smoothies, burnt smoothies, mushrooms. I'll have to do all this stuff too. Okay. Does crafting burnt smoothie require you to get a bunch of magazines?
It's cooking magazines, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, I guess I'll start using them then. Gonna have to.
You don't need those to go in the biome.
Oh,
you want to set up like a little mini camp just outside the biome, and then just make little excursions over and over.
So I meant like no, I have to craft burnt smoothies if I want to leave grass. I think. So, like, getting the mats is fine, but you know, I do have to actually craft it. Is I don't know if burnt smoothie is hard to make. I don't really understand the crafting in this game that well. Burnt smoothie requires coal, plant fibers, mushrooms, and water. Oh, they don't make you learn like a cooking skill or anything for this. Oh, okay, good. So never mind. No, this is easy. It's just like reduces the hazardous effects of the burned oak forest. Oh, never mind. This is really easy. Never mind. So I was thinking it was like you had to have like 50 cooking skill to make anything kind of thing. So when you raise cooking skill, does it just like give you better yield?
Lets you make higher level recipes.
Ah. So but burnt smoothie is like a level 1 recipe, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it has any requirements, so... Okay, I am all set.
All right.
Oh, Luna, is that you? Luna C, join the game. Oh, my wrench. Right. I left it in the damn box again. Oh. Well,
That means you need clearing.
I keep forgetting. I am. I'm down here clearing. I just need to remember. That's not happening. That's not happening either. Ugh.
Nice job.
So I popped up and they were like on me. Not really, I got an infection. Pair of scavenger boots. Hunter's Journal, Volume 7. That's a really good book. Maybe you should take this one off. It's on the ground.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Well, I got back out again. So this was the end, but yeah, so I don't know. I think that's everything. I don't know. I might have missed a lot. What are you banging on?
Your mom.
Ah, I set myself up. Ah!
There's a pipe rifle if you want it.
Sure. I like pipe rifles, yeah.
I mean, it's day 6. It's almost word time.
Yeah, more guns the merrier. Lunacy is here looking in your boxes. I'm gonna go spend my dukes on I'm gonna go spend my dukes on like a fucking antibiotic. Yeah, I do want to.
Great. Here you go. Don't spend it all in one place. Oh, look who's tired. Word of advice. Next time, bathe before coming to a job interview.
I have one 165 meters. Tier 1 fetch.
Try anything smart, and you'll get a new start.
Damn it, I need antibiotics, and he doesn't sell any. Yeah.
You're getting on my nerves, friend.
Okay, as much as I'd like to keep going,
Yeah, you want to stop?
tomorrow's my first actual day of work, and I don't want to be like tired as fuck from staying up playing a game that's been out for 10 years.
All right, buddy. Well, this was fun. Thank you. Very fun session.
Yeah, that's fun. I'll be. I mean, I'm planning on playing this whenever I have time. I have my kids this coming weekend, which is what sucks so much about the timing of.
Well, that's okay. You know, the game's not going anywhere, so.
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to keep playing, obviously. You're higher level than the other guys.
No, I'm going to keep this duo for us, and I'm going to play an offline character that doesn't interfere with my other slots. So.
Okay. Yeah,
but yeah.
fine too.
Yeah, because it does. This locks me out of all my other MMOs. It sucks, but it's true.
But yeah, I'll be on when I get home and get fed tomorrow.
All right. So you play tomorrow? Okay. Well, I'll see you tomorrow then.
Yeah, I just won't be playing on the weekend.
All right. Asian Golden Eagle. I don't think I want to follow this person. Doesn't seem like my type of person.
Okay, what up, friendos? Welcome back. We're talking about NFTs today. NFTs, video gaming, specifically Ember Sword. There's been a lot of...
Ember Sword. Gonna leave this Discord now. Disconnect. There we go. Now, I am going to... let's go back to Mortal, and I want to chop trees.
like misinformation and just incorrect reporting here about the Ember Sword thing. And what you should know is Ember Sword is, well, it was, as we're going to get to, a crypto NFT MMO. You know, this was never realistic. That's why I'm air quotes in. This was never going to be a game. The game, in fact, as is usually the case, was being run on the idiots who thought that...
Excuse me. I'm going to go throw something in the skillet for dinner. I'll be right back. Yeah, this is going to be good. Should I pick that stir-fried Thai noodles tomorrow? Alright, cashew, egg, potato. Very good. Then we're going to do a sauce base. The rest of the Sprego? Yeah, the rest of the Sprego. Enjoy. Maybe I'll turn the Sprego bottle upside down. Yeah. As much out of it as I can. Carbs. Yeah, that's a good taste. And then we'll just kind of let that simmer and go. Have this for dinner. Yeah. Light. Camera. Action. Was a good 7 days session.
Digital ownership, you know, buying land for thousands of dollars in a non-existing game was somehow going to then translate later on into investment returns or the greatest game ever. You know, typically giving money for things before they exist in a game you don't even know is going to be good, especially in video game development where the best and most tenured teams in the industry can create absolute fucking stinkers. Companies like BioWare with decades of tenure history releasing good games under publishers like EA. You know, EA is what EA is, but we all know they have the money, the resources, the experience to release good games. Even they can spend millions, tens of millions of dollars, just essentially shitting themselves to death in public with releases like the new Dragon Age game. This just can happen. So Unknown Studio appears. We're going to make the best thing ever. It's going to include this technology that is yet to have actually been proven to be A, useful, B, wanted, C, viable technically going into these games. They show up, they say they're going to do this. Stupid people with more money than sense say, oh, Bitcoin went crazy and went up in value. What if I bought Bitcoin, 10 years ago? I'd be rich. Then they convince themselves somehow that they're savvy or whatever and they're going to buy these things. And then obviously the thing doesn't do anything because the chances the game ever works out are incredibly small. And then even if the game was really good, the chances that people would want to play the game at the end or the money would keep flowing in to the end essentially means that the success rate, if you know anything about investing, technology, games, is close to zero. And this is what they found out. So in August of 2021, Bright Star Studios launched the Ember Sword pledge system. Now, what you'll have seen recently is a bunch of people making videos or writing articles saying that the company received $203 million. This didn't happen. You can find it with a pretty quick Google search. Unfortunately, the word pledges does a lot of heavy lifting here. Basically, what happened was they said, we're going to sell NFTs to people, and these NFTs are going to be land in this video game that doesn't exist. And people said, oh yeah, I'll give you X dollars for a piece of this land in the future. I don't know why the fuck they did this. I'm guessing to try and hoodwink investors into being like, oh, look at how many people want to give us money. Why don't you give us money and you can own nothing just like they would, but you'll probably own equity in our company. which will inevitably turn out to be worth nothing also. But essentially, 34,791 people in their community said, we will pledge X amount of dollars for land, and it equaled, once you added all those pledges together, $203.7 million. But obviously, there wasn't $203 million raised, there wasn't $200 million worth of land sold, and while it's, incorrect reporting to say they raised $200 million, as a spin on this, 200 mil, if they did raise it, would have raised a bunch of questions like, where the fuck did this money go? But at the same time, it raises more questions when the money wasn't raised, such as if 35,000 people said, we'll give you this amount of money, and then when it came time to pony up that money, they said, nah, actually, and only $11 million was raised. That kind of goes to show that, one, investors would have had a real rough time with this, just like the public. Two, the demand for this was simply not there by the time they were ready to shake people upside by their ankles and get the gold coins to fall out. And three, they all got fucked. Everybody in this got fucked other than the company. Now, they didn't raise $200 million, so they never had 200 mil to spend trying to develop the game. What they did raise, though, was still, as far as I can find, over $15 million. Some private investment, some from the $11 million, obviously, that they raised from this land sale. But obviously, if you don't know what Ember Sword is, will be forgiven, because this is what it is. Now, this is just some random person that I searched up on YouTube and found. But this, while it doesn't look like the worst game ever, this looks like a prototype for a Kickstarter where it's one guy shitting in a bucket in his parents' basement saying, oh, I just need $5,000 to make this full-scale MMORPG using asset packs. And look at what I've already done. I've already done so much. Look at all the asset packs I've strung together. And surely that means, because I did that and put it into a trailer, I'm then going to be able to make the best game ever. And we all know, if you followed my coverage of Kickstarter games or MMOs for years, we all know that this is complete bollocks. And just having an online world where people can log in and you've slapped some assets together doesn't mean you're going to then be able to make a full-scale MMO that people would want to play. Maybe you can build a world, maybe you can, like I said, slap some stuff together, maybe people can log in, but that's not a game. That's not a game people are going to play. But this is what Ember Sword turned out to be up until 4 months ago. This is recent gameplay of something that, as far as I can tell, raised over $15 million. I think it's actually over 20. So you might ask the question, what went wrong with such a beautiful, amazing game, right? All the crypto bros were saying this was the future. You're wrong, Kira. This is definitely going to work out. What do you know about gaming? What do you know about cryptocurrency? We are the Web3 mafia, and we're just going to pump money into things until it makes sense. And, of course, we're sticking around for the future. But obviously, 7.8 million raised in 2021 and 2022, 11 million through the NFT land sale. Is this enough money to make a full-scale MMO? I don't know. Probably not. Is it enough money if you don't fuck around and waste money enough to keep your studio going for more than 4 years? Yeah, probably. It probably is. But of course, with Ember Sword, they must have just blown money out of their ass doing what? Who knows? According to some articles I could find, there was a very troubled development. Who'd have known crypto bros not the best game developers? Where they spent a long time trying to figure out what engine they were going to use and just repeatedly trying engines out and things, which is a good thing to do with money that people gave you for a finished game, right? That's a really good way to spend people's hard-earned cash. Then again, somebody who was going to give you money for land in a video game that doesn't exist, knowing nothing about video games or clearly investing or what an investment is, they were probably going to lose that money on some shit coins or some fucking monkey JPEGs anyway, so really hard to hold that against them, to be fair. That being said, of course, as they were running out of money, as they were trying to desperately, claw and grasp anything they could, they raised absolutely fucking nothing from launching a crypto token called Ember for the Ember Sword game. And this, as far as I can tell, reached like $100,000 market cap or something. Like, this is awful. This is really bad. But of course, even from being down that badly, it's
There
now
goes
down
stir my dinner.
99%. So anybody who put money into this, also down 99%. 99.2 actually, so congrats on that one. So as you can see here, they officially launched early access in December of 2024. It didn't go well because, you know, if it did, maybe some of those people who pledged some at $200 million would have said, yeah, we'll actually give you some of it. But obviously, as they found out, as all these companies will eventually find out, just because somebody said at one point when you're not taking money off them, oh, I'll definitely give you money for this thing when this thing becomes available. If you've not shown that you are going to actually produce something that's going to be worth that money, even the crypto bros are going to pull out. Even the crypto bros are not going to give you the money, which is crazy because they'll buy almost fucking anything at this stage. And of course, they eventually went and posted on their website, the Embersword website, which doesn't fucking load. They must be seeing tons of traffic for all those players that they certainly had. I'll just read it off of a Google image because their website just doesn't fucking load. So they say this is one of the hardest announcements we've ever had to make. By the way, they've taken like $20 million or something from people, from investors, from people like Dr. Disrespect, lol, deserved, but from the public, of course, as well. And I say this is one of the hardest announcements they've ever had to make. What? You've taken everyone's money. None of it's left. You're not refunding anyone. The game's gone. Everyone's been fucked. You're saying it's one of the hardest. What other things have you announced? That's a crazy thing to say. So back in December, we shared how we were fighting to keep Embersword moving forward despite the challenges. Many of you have been patiently waiting for an update, and while this isn't the news we hope to deliver, it's important we share now. Well, yeah, you're out of money. Like, you pulled the plug. And by the way, I have it on good authority that a large percent of the people working at this studio were laid off months before the playtest ever happened, months before the actual game was in the early access period. So the money was gone long ago. Where did it go? I don't know. How can you spend 20 million in 4 years making an indie game that looks like something a couple people shitting in a bucket in a basement could make using purely asset packs? I don't know. I don't know where this money's gone. It's weird. There was, as far as I'm aware, no equity, no shares, nothing given over to people involved in the game. There's a whole bunch of testimony you can go and read online where people who worked at this company are saying we didn't earn anything other than our salaries, which weren't crazy salaries, which you can sometimes see in cryptocurrency games. So where this money went, I simply do not know. It would be interesting to see some kind of accounting for this, but of course we're never going to. And since cryptocurrency is apparently no longer being looked into for fraud and things in the United States, not that I'm saying that there was fraud here, I just simply don't think we're going to ever get any clarity on where the money really went, unless somebody, as an insider that has access to these records, reaches out to somebody, which I don't think we'll see. So our passion for MMOs runs deep. That's why we tried to fucking make an absolute abomination, make some kind of fucking homunculus. We spent our lives playing, building, and dreaming about worlds where strangers become friends, where effort and skill are rewarded, and where stories come alive through shared experiences, and where you can spend thousands of dollars to get an advantage and a leg up before the game's even made. And then if the game fails, you lose all your money, and if it doesn't, you fucking clown on the paws, and you rent them out parts of your land so they can experience renting in real life, but in a video game, being the peon in real life, and also being the peon in the video game. We also believe still deeply that blockchain technology has the potential to reshape these worlds for the better. Lol, prove it. To give players real ownership, agency, and value for their time. Yeah, of course. Paying thousands of dollars for something in a video game is real valuable. You're valuing your time there. When we started, it was about proving that great game design and the blockchain could work. You fucking failed then, didn't you? You failed big time. Because you proved nothing. You proved, in fact, the one thing you did prove is everyone right. Not you. You didn't prove fuck all about what you can do. But it could work and could feel fun and fair and rewarding. Thanks to the incredible team here and your support, we got further than many would have thought we could. No, you didn't. You got exactly where everyone thought you could, which is to take money from idiots and then do fucking nothing. And thanks to the incredible team that we laid off and wasted money to the point where you no longer have a job. Congrats. Thanks, guys. We're going to show our gratitude to you by firing you.
Almost burned my dinner.
Here you go. Gratitude. Despite strong early support promising early access play stats, no. In a passionate community, we were. Is it a community? It's just a bunch of fucking people rubbing their hands together like rats, right? That's what the community is here. There will, of course, be some people that are an exception to this rule, but by and large, somebody who's buying land in a crypto game before the game exists are people who are looking to simply make a dollar. They don't care about you. This has been proven time and time again. They are rats. They will scurry away as soon as they see the exterminator. They'll run away and hide in their holes, and the minute that they can, they will eat the young. Like, they will literally they will dump on their mothers if they could, as long as they could get out with, a percentage profit. They all admit it eventually. Like, if they make the money, they'll, lol, I don't care. Like, I made the money, lol. Like, this is what they do. So I'm sure there were some people in the community that were passionate, but most of them were passionate about money, not the video game. Facts. We were ultimately unable to secure the funding needed to continue. Shocker. We explored every possible way forward, apart from making a good game. But in today's market, where even some of the most promising projects are shutting down, we couldn't find a path to keep building. You know why this is? Because none of these promising products projects in the cryptocurrency market have done anything. Not a single. It's been 5 years, guys. It's been 5 years. There's been more money raised for these things in the last 5 years than any normal game other than Star Citizen. We all have to throw that caveat in there. As in overall industry, money stopped coming in anyway. VCs are not putting money into normal games. People are not putting money, by and large, into crypto games. VCs are definitely not putting money into crypto games. But you've had 5 years where some of these projects have raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And you know where we are? Not a singular one is even remotely successful. Not in crypto terms, and certainly not in normal video game terms. None of these things substantially exist in any way that would convince anybody to play them over what is available from a normal video game publisher. Like, you failed wholeheartedly. Like, all the best will in the world give you the opportunity to, give you enough rope to hang yourself with, give you enough gold coins to fucking swim in like Scrooge McDuck. You've all failed to provide any value to the space or prove that anything you could do is
Borderlands
valuable
4
to
is
anybody
coming. Wow.
other than yourself. You all paid yourself salaries, probably really good salaries for years, at the higher end of these companies, making nothing for nobody apart from yourselves. That's a fact. So, yeah, some of the most promising projects are shutting down in real gaming, but in cryptocurrency, none of them were promising, ever. Full stop. Find me one. Link it to me. Crypto Bros. Send me an email. Oh, this one's the future Kira. Corn Fam. Fucking whoever. These people that have been saying for years, oh, you're wrong. This is the one. Prove it. Show me one. Show me successful metrics of any other than taking candy from a baby. You are the baby in this analogy. We couldn't find a path to keep building. Our journeys in the servers will go offline. As part of this, Discord channels will also be closed to avoid confusion or scams. Let me clarify here. They're not closing any of this to avoid confusion or scams. There's no confusion. They're closing this so people can't speak to each other and use whatever was said within a Discord server for years of history in case any kind of like civil litigation or anything goes on, or any kind of law enforcement were to come sniffing around. If that was the case, this is a liability issue, not a, oh, we're doing this for you guys, because they've also closed other social media, stopped posting on social media and things like that. If you were truly for the community, you'd leave the community up so people could speak to each other, friends that they found or whatever, but you didn't. You've closed it, and it's not for the reasons you say. At least I don't believe so. This isn't the ending any of us wanted. Maybe none of you, but, you know. We want to sincerely thank you for being here, for believing in this vision, and for helping make...
For most people...
Thank you, Kira, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. Thank you, Wendigang, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. Wow, he just did 2 channels. I'll be right back. Okay, so we have some nice cashew of looking real good. Nice cashew. much better.
Means the annual pilgrimage of braving the
Casio e Pepe.
chaos.
The
of
bowl's
their
dirty from
returning
lunch,
to
but I mean, but it's Casio e Pepe.
their hometown and inevitably just watching cable news in the childhood home they grew up in. However, for the Sauter family of Fayetteville, West Virginia, one Christmas changed everything. And like
Ugh.
any good unsolved mystery, this one had it all. A deadly fire, a missing ladder, a cut phone line, the FBI, beef liver, a partridge in a pear tree. But to understand how George and Jenny Sauter brought their family into the national spotlight, we have to go back to Italy. Today we'll be talking about the disappearance of the Sauter children and what might have really happened to them. This is me putting together a video on the topic because I really want to, but if you want to see someone who's much better at YouTube than I am, check out my buddy Ryan over on Nexpo to see his coverage of the case, which is fantastic. I can't recommend it enough.
Nexpo, huh? Okay. Nexpo. Okay, let's check out Nexpo.
In the early hours of Christmas Eve 1945, a house fire broke out in Fayetteville, West Virginia, devastating a family called the Sauters. Out of George and Jenny Sauter's 9 children, 5 were never seen again. You
What?
would expect that these missing kids had perished inside. However, reality isn't so simple. Their remains were never found. Their bodies unaccounted for. And it's like they up and vanished, leaving a multi-decade-long mystery lying in their wake.
Their family was decimated.
Welcome back to another video adaptation of Late Nights with Nexpo, my new podcast that launched just last month with new mysteries you can listen to every single week.
Mysteries?
From what it looks like, you guys seem to have enjoyed the launch video, and so I've decided to pick one a month from the pack of currently uploaded episodes, adapt it to video, and bring it to you guys here. After this video, if there's an episode that you find interesting, one that you'd like to see adapted here in between main uploads, let me know in the comments.
This Casio Pepe is so good.
Alright, without further ado, into the abyss we go. Welcome back, my friends, to Late Nights with Nexpo.
I love it. It's fucking dope. I like it. Yeah. Video adaptations of podcasts. That's cool. Yeah.
You're driving along a lonely stretch of West Virginia highway.
In
The only light
1945.
comes from the headlights of your car, which shine on the dark forest lining the road. The scenery is a blur. Until suddenly, up ahead,
More like a
Scenes.
horse-drawn buggy, you know, not a
strange
car.
billboard looming low to the ground at the side of the road. From it, the faces of 5 unsmiling children staring back at you. Their photos are haunting enough. But then you read the words plastered above. What was their fate? Kidnapped or murdered? Or are they still alive?
Nexpo is an interesting name.
Christmas Eve, 1945. Just outside Fayetteville, West Virginia. Freezing temperatures make the trees creak and the river run still. But inside the Sauter family's house, it's warm. George and Jenny Sauter are
This
there
dinner is
with
so much
9
better than
of
I
their 10
usually
children.
have.
The only
That's good.
member of the family that's not present is Joe, the Sauter's second to oldest son, who's away serving in the army. The youngest children, who have just received some new toys from the local dime store, play happily in the living room. As it gets late, the parents retire to their bedroom on the first floor, taking their 3-year-old daughter Sylvia with them. Everyone else has beds on the second floor. The older kids, John, Marion, and George Jr., share one room.
George
The younger
Jr.
kids, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Ginny, and Betty, sleep in another upstairs room. At this point, the Sauter children begin to trickle off to bed. But not all. Some of the younger ones are too excited about Christmas to go to sleep just yet. And Marion, the eldest daughter, stays up on the couch to watch them play a little while longer. Though other children still have chores to do. Maurice and Louis must go outside to feed the animals before they turn in. It's not an enviable chore. Maurice and Louis layer on hats and coats and journey out into the freezing darkness to feed them. It's a stark contrast from the warmth, joy, and laughter of the living room to the quiet, eerie stillness of the outdoors. 2 hours later, a silence has fallen over their home. And then, at 12:30 a.m., the phone rings. Jenny, the mother, awakens with a startle. She looks around her bedroom.
The phone's ringing at night in 1945. Something's really wrong.
Next to her.
Something's really wrong.
She gets out of her warm bed, clutching her nightgown.
1945. If it's 1945 and the phone's ringing, something's really wrong. Like someone's either dead or there's a crisis or the cops are coming or something like that. It was like that for a long time, all the way up until I was like, I would say 13 years old or something like that. If somebody called in the middle of the night at like 1:45 in the morning or 12:45 or 2:45 in the morning, something like that. Like now it's common with like cell phones and stuff because it doesn't wake anybody up. But these days, landlines still exist and people do call like that late, and it is like when there's a crisis, nobody calls you that late.
Against the cold. Bewildered as to who could be calling at this hour, she exits her room and crosses to the table where the phone is. The lights, she notices, are still on. They should be turned off now that all the children are in bed, all save for Marion, who's fallen asleep on the living room couch. Jenny reaches the phone, grabs the receiver off the hook, and offers a blunt hello. But the voice on the other end doesn't introduce themselves. Instead, what Jenny hears is laughter. And it's not pleasant laughter either. It feels cruel, almost as though this caller is mocking her. And then suddenly it stops. The voice on the line finally speaks and asks for a name, someone that doesn't live there. And so Jenny informs them that they have the wrong number and hangs up. Unsettled, Jenny surveys the room around her. A number of unusual things pop out to her now. It's not just that the lights are all on. The curtains are wide open, too. And when Jenny walks to the front door, she finds it unlocked. She sighs. Her children know perfectly well how to lock up for the night. She considers waking Marion to chastise her, but thinks better of it. It's Christmas, after all. The kids were probably just excited and forgetful. Jenny locks the door herself and closes the curtains. Then she hurries back to the warmth of her bed and slowly drifts off to sleep. A strange noise comes from above. Jenny's eyes blink open. She sits up groggily, trying to get her bearings. It's still dark out. Now she hears a new noise overhead. A rolling sound, like something landed on the roof with a thud and rolled off. And then, silence. Jenny tells herself that it was just an animal. She tries to fall back asleep, but then an acrid scent hits her nostrils. Her eyes fly open. She's wide awake now.
Smoke?
It's because she knows that smell.
Smoke.
It's smoke. In an instant, Jenny's up and out of bed, hoisting little Sylvia into her arms and screaming for George to wake up. She sees smoke pouring into the bedroom from beneath the door. George, Jenny, and Sylvia burst out of their bedroom, and they're met with an apocalyptic scene. Their house is becoming engulfed in flames. They race to the telephone to call the fire department, only to discover, to their horror, that the phone line, which worked perfectly just a little while ago, is dead.
So in America, for a long time, up until 1990, no, like 2001, maybe 2000, and yeah, like maybe 1996 to 2001, somewhere around there, up until 1996, and that was a long time ago for some kids. Like, that's older than some people were born, you know. But up until like 96 or 99 in this country, and you couldn't I couldn't explain this to a kid. They wouldn't understand what I'm talking about. But I understand it. When you were in trouble, like back then, before 1996, when you were in trouble, you knew that it was like a phone call over a landline and at least a 25 minutes, a 45-minute wait. These days it's better because stuff's cellular and the cops are more like organized and they have computers so they can tell each other where they are. And like, but back then you would call like a cop and it might be 25 to 45, sometimes an hour and a half later or something like that. So like this thing about gotta call the cops or the firefighters to come to, you know, and the firefighters would come. The firefighters would show up within 10 minutes, something like that. The firefighters were reliable. But the cops, you know, if there was something really bad, if there was like a killer in the house or something like that, the cops would take like between like, you know, 20 and sometimes an hour and a half, something like that. And this was because computers didn't exist and the phone lines were faulty. And the guys, they had to talk to each other over radio and they had to figure out where they were. And so when they contacted each other on the fucking radio, the dispatch would have to be like, okay, where are you, car 54? Remember there's a whole television show about this, car 54, where are you? There's like literally like there's a whole television show about this, the dispatcher and the car 54 and all this stuff. And I know because I work taxi and I know how scary this is when there's something terrifying happening at your and now I don't know where she lives, but I'm assuming it's kind of further out, like she's in the boonies. And if she's in the boonies, she's fucked. It might be like an hour before somebody can get out there. And I experienced it when I was a child. So things were a lot scarier back then. Things were a lot scarier. I gotta say, you didn't live in more fear. We live in more fear now. But when something bad happened, you would be a lot more alarmed and panicked and stuff. People had shorter fuses, kind of, and people get panicked a lot easier because there was like no backup. There was no backup back then. These days, you can call 911, and you can go screaming, and your neighbors are far more likely to help you and listen for you screaming and stuff and come help you because they can all get on the phone with 911 too. It'd be like, my neighbor's screaming and I want you to help them, etc. Right? They can do something good about it now. But it wasn't like that before 1996. You would get scared, you get scared that if you were calling for help or something like this. And on top of it, people back then, they weren't necessarily so inclined to help as they are now because you could get I feel like now the whole cell phone thing has made it so that if you're negligent and you don't help somebody else might videotape that and that might end up being really bad for you. So people will just help by rote now. They know better. It's like this connected like community now. But back then, and like when I was like say 10 years old, and you know, I was like about 10 years old or so, around 96, let's say that. It's not true, but I mean it's close enough without doxing me. And so like, and I remember like how creepy it was to live in a boondocks. Like we lived in a mansion, but I knew that like for something bad to happen meant that you were already probably fucked because by the time, especially in a townhouse like this out there further, and the older it is, the more likely these people are split out and a little bit further from everybody else. The older, like 1945, right? She's not in the center of the city because if she smells smoke in the city, somebody else will smell it too and call the firefighters. But she's somewhere where like they're like she's out further out a bit in the boonies, I think, and that's not so good. That means that somebody's on your land. I remember having this terrible paranoia when I was a kid. It means somebody's on your land. Like you would watch your land all the time when you read if you're out further in the boondocks and stuff, you would watch your front lawn and stuff. People would stand by their like old people would sit by their fucking window while they watch television and stuff, and they would just watch the front of their house. And people still do this because it's like if somebody's on your land and trespassing and fixing to fuck you or home intruder or steal something from you, and robbery and home intrusions did happen even when I was a kid. I remember like that everybody I knew had some story about at some point in their life somebody had broken into their house when they weren't home. But that was the common story that you would hear. You would hear that when you went away on vacation, somebody would find out and come and steal your house, like come and steal from your house. And while that's, you know, like, and that's, you know, that, and I had a lot of friends who would talk about this. Like, even Calvin and Hobbes had a story where their house was broken into, and this was common enough for Americans, kind of. You know, it happened to my parents. You know, somebody broke into the garage and their business, and like, and this sucks. And so, and that's terrifying when that happens, because you begin to realize that if the cops come, it's going to be like between 25 and 45 minutes, unless the police station is down the street, and there's no excuse why they can't just send somebody from the station to come right then and there, or down a couple blocks, or down like a mile to your house or something like that. But if you live like 4 miles from a police station or something like that, back in the phone age, right before computers, in the phone age, that like all of the cops in the station, they might be out dealing with stuff, so then you've got to wait for somebody to clear up. I mean, the same is true now, but it's a little bit more organized, and definitely a lot more organized than it used to be. So like when you would make a call, somebody would show, and it would have to be very fast, and they would be panicked and driving very fast to get there. But like, you know, but it still could be between 25 minutes to an hour. So that fear she's got is something that the modern age you don't feel anymore, because everybody's got cell phones, right? So you can just run to the fucking neighbor, and you could be like, and like they can stand there by the door. They don't even have to open the door. And you can be like, look, my house is burning down, and something's happening with my kids. I need you to call 911 or help me, or send your husband or something like that. And if you don't want to help me, that's fine, but just please call 911 or something like that. In the modern age, it's really like you can't go 5 minutes without finding another muggle that can help you or whatever, right? In the old days, like especially in the 1940s and stuff, if something like this is happening, if you smell smoke in your fucking house, and I know because I used to have really paranoid feelings about that. I used to be very paranoid about the house burning down, because I knew that if you know, I would be very paranoid about that. When I cooked, I would really pay attention, because like, you know, that if you set fire to the fucking house, it's gonna be like a half an hour response time or something like that. Up until 2004, when we all had broadband internet, that was when it got a lot safer, and it was a lot, and it became a lot safer to live further out from people and like, and all this stuff. So, but that sinking feeling that I'm starting to get, and you're starting to get, this is because she's fucked already. There's the likelihood of anybody coming in time before whatever bad thing is about to happen is so fucking low that you might as well just be dead. You know, like they did a movie about it one time called The Shining, where it's like, and the reason that movie was so successful is we all had that fear back then, all the way, especially in the 70s and the 80s. You were out in some further house in the boondocks often, because sometimes it was the cities. The cities felt better, but like if you were out in the boonies, you knew that if something bad happened, probably the response time is going to be 40 minutes or something like that. So you get this big fear, you get this terrible fear when something bad happens, and that's what he's playing off here. And maybe the modern kids, they wouldn't really understand it.
Only 2 of Jenny's children are accounted for at the moment.
On top of it, back then in 1945, calling on a phone, that's like, I mean, who are you going to call? That like the police, the local police constable, and probably the local nurse are going to come. Like, it's not like maybe in New York an ambulance might come, but I mean, like, or like LA, but no, in most places in the country in that day and age, in 1945, if you called on a phone at like fucking, you know, 2:45 in the fucking morning, probably you're gonna get a doctor and a nurse the next morning at like, you know, at like 6:45 a.m. when they wake up, or I mean, well, maybe somebody comes, like somebody probably comes, but it probably takes 2.5 hours or something like that. That person has to get in their buggy or their car or their fucking car and then drive over there with these bald ass tires, and cars broke down back then a lot, you know, broke down more often than not. And so like, you know, and so maybe they break down on the way, so then they've got to prepare a tire or something like that. It was really like fast response back then just didn't happen. So you would get this sinking feeling. anytime something was out of place on your land or your home, or you would see like a broken window or something like that, you would get this sinking feeling like, oh, somebody's here. But I mean, the response time's 40 minutes or something like that. If I have to call the police because somebody's here, it's going to take 40 minutes. Do I call and do I wait outside in the fucking, like do you wait, I know what my mother would do. She would wait in the fucking, like in the parking, like not in the parking, but the, like in the driveway. She would wait in the driveway until the police officer would come. I know, because you don't want to go in there. The response time is so fucking slow. It's not like you have backup. You're basically dealing with the problem yourself. And I mean, you might pay taxes all of your life as some accountant who's never fired a gun or been in a fist fight or anything like that. So you're really counting on these cops to actually fucking protect you, because you're not trained to fight somebody or anything like that. You didn't go do jujitsu in the modern age at the karate fucking thing down the street or whatever. You like, that wasn't around back then. So like, trouble was a lot worse back then, is all I'm trying to say. And it's weird because I would like to testify about it. I remember how scared I would get when, say, when a drunk hobo was on your land, or like, or say you would see kids on your lawn, or like, or somebody knocks at your back door and you're like, what the fuck? This is either my closest family member or it's a psycho killer, one or the other, because nobody knocks on my back door, right? And you're like, what the fuck? I mean, they can walk to your back door and you find out it's like the meter reader, and your meter isn't running, and they're telling you that they've got to come back again the next day or something, and you're like, what the fuck? Oh my god, you scare me so bad. And America was very paranoid up until 96, and then the cell phone killed that. I swear to God, the cell phone killed that. The minute that we had a cell phone in our pocket, we got a lot less fearful. And this is when, by the way, a lot more gun murders started to occur. We got a lot less fearful about gun murdering each other the minute that we had a cell phone in our pocket, because I swear to God, I feel like it can light off and then you can just call 911 afterwards and have them come clean up the fucking mess. It's insane.
Her youngest, Sylvia.
America was kind of a scary place to grow up in some ways. Like, for instance, like at night, like my parents would come with me all my life when I went trick-or-treating, because at night, like with no cell phone, anything could happen. Some dude could, like kids in the modern age, they can't relate, but back then we had a serious fucking fear of some creepy ass dude jumping out of the fucking bushes and just snatching you and pulling you back into the bushes, and then you're never heard of again. Like that was like a legitimate fear that every kid I knew had. Like you would watch the bushes really carefully when you would walk by them and stuff. I swear to God, like it was a way more paranoid time to live, because like back then there just wasn't any response time. It was like garbage. It was like an hour. It's not like they had computers. If they were talking to somebody, it was on a fucking like a radio. Yeah, I'm talking like those walkie-talkie radios and stuff. So if they're out of range dealing with some other murder or something like that, outside the range of the radio murder, or like dealing with the radio, like some murder, and before they get back in range for the radio, because they have to drive 50 miles out of range of the radio, you're fucked. It might be 5 hours before the cop shows up to respond to the murder call at your house. That's what was so scary. I think I have illustrated enough. Like I'm just repeating myself over and over again, but I mean, like it was like that growing up. You'd get anytime something was out of place like this, and you had to get up out of bed at like 2:45 in the morning, you would be so scared, because you knew that it was just you. It was just you and your family. That's it. You have to deal with whatever it is. So it was almost like a felony level of rude to knock on somebody's door at 2:45 in the morning. It's like almost felony level. You might get shot doing stuff like that in America, because we knew that the response time was like 2 hours. Nobody had cell phones. There was no response time. The firefighters were like tasked with showing up to your burning house inside of 10 to 20 minutes or something. And they were very proud to do this for like 100 years. And now it's a lot easier for them with cell phones and stuff like this. It's a lot easier for them to respond and know exactly when it happened. And with broadband internet, they can get a signal right quick. They're like, yeah, motherfucker just got an OnStar warning or whatever from his house. Like, Bring Security just called and said that this guy's house is burning down. And the firefighter asks how long, and they say, oh, it's been about 3 minutes or something like that. Because in the modern age, you can call somebody on a motherfucking cell phone. But even running to your fucking phone back then might take like 5-10 minutes. The house might have burned down by then. Like if you're out in the garage and you're painting or something like that, which we used to do before the internet, because everything was so goddamn boring. My father would paint because there was nothing to do. There was no video. My father hated video games because he knew how much fun I was having and how bored he was as a kid. He would just wander the desert looking for something to do, look for Gila monsters or something, right? I know, because I used to have to do that too before video games were created. I would just have to go out. I was expected to go outside out my back door at 3:15 in the afternoon after school and be out there until 9:30 at night or something. 6 hours, and you better come up with your own entertainment. Better play swords or archery or I don't know, play with some army men or read a comic book in the fucking treehouse that you built or build the treehouse or something. You better fucking do something, because there's nothing to do. It's 6 hours until bedtime, and there's no there's television, but your parents won't let you watch that all day long. So you just you go outside and you do something. Kids would disappear. There was kids on the back of the milk carton, and nobody was surprised because nobody was surprised at all, because any dude could just jump out of the fucking bushes. And the response time to that was anywhere between 40 minutes and 5 hours or something like that. So if you can't fend for your fucking self, so we were never surprised later on when I was 14 and stuff, when you would hear about gang murders and stuff like this. We were never surprised about that, because we felt like if you were walking down the streets in the modern era, somebody could just jump out at you. So yeah, you just light them up. You fucking light them up. What do you do in America? You can't do anything. The response time's between 25 minutes and 2 hours. That cop's not going to get there in time to save your fucking ass, and it's kind of still like that. It's still like that, sort of. If there's trouble in the house, this is why make my day laws are so crazy. It's so prevalent in this fucking nation, is because probably by the time that the cops fucking arrive, and that's what's so sinking feeling about the intro to this video, is by the time the cops fucking arrive, it's probably over. And that's still true, kind of. It's fucking fucked up. It's one of the reasons why we deal with non-lethals, and I have 3 tasers and a bunch of bear mace and all kinds of booby traps and fucking cameras and stuff all around this place, because dogs and all the shit, because I mean out here it might be probably 25 minutes at the longest it'll take is 25 minutes, but it's probably going to be 18 to 25 minutes. They're going to show up within 25 minutes, or they couldn't keep their police station running. But I mean, but it's going to take between probably 15 and 25 minutes. Most people can probably kill your whole family inside of 5 minutes or something. I mean, that's, if you really look at the time, they probably go through your whole house while they're in their beds and just gangland execute your whole family inside of 5 fucking minutes. And we lived in this kind of fear. So your neighbors would look out for you. Grandma would sit by the fucking window while she would wash her soaps. I know, because my grandmother did it for years. She sat by the fucking front window to her house, and she eventually moved to the back of the house, which was you're doing better. You're doing better, and but for a long time, people's grandmothers would sit by the front window, by the front door, just making sure that whatever was going on in the front of the house wasn't suspect and stuff, because back then it was so scary like this.
Wailing in her arms. In nearby,
kids are worse, because then you've got to take care of them over anything else. You got to just pretty much make sure that kids I'm going to tell you the negative side of kids. They also make you completely powerless as a defensive agent, because you have to worry about you can't let the kid leave your sight in a crisis situation like this, or you're considered a bad person in your community, whether you're the parent or not. It's actually crazy like this. So you can't go battle the guy that's at the front door. If the kid's crying and is in your room and they're 3 and stuff, you can't go battle the guy that just fucking bed intrudered in the front door and it's menacing your family, because that means leaving the 3-year-old crying in the room, and you can't actually do that as a parent. You can't actually do that as a good member in your community and shit. So kids can leave you particularly powerless too in a situation like this. Her
eldest daughter, Marion, has awakened on the first floor.
Yeah, something's happening. She's smelling smoke, and she's starting to cry. She's something's wrong, Mommy. This is every American's nightmare. It's not just America. It's everywhere. It's everywhere's nightmare. This is everybody's worst nightmare. You're sleeping at night at 2:45 in the fucking morning. You smell smoke. The kids are starting to cry. Some dude's there, but they haven't announced themselves. And I swear to God, there's a black hat theory that I've covered on my stream quite a bit. The black hat man. And this would, I swear to God, I had a black hat man experience. I've talked about it on my fucking stream stream before several times because it comes up every once in a while, right? It's this old concept. There's a good illustration of it, the Hat Man, because on the cover of this documentary called The Hat Man that I watched, which is a bad documentary, but this race memory of a Hat Man. So many people have like called up police and FBI and shit and reported that there's a man with some kind of black fedora in their fucking house. There's been tens of thousands of what they call true stories of evil encounters, basically. Yeah, that's what they call it. They say it's true stories of evil encounters because these people, like random people, will see a Hat Man standing in their closets, usually standing in their closet or in the backyard in the middle of the day. This is how we got that movie Scream. That's where they got that character Scream from, is because like the horror movie guy Wes Craven, he realized that the Hat Man was actually a really scary thing. That people, and I had a Hat Man experience when I was like 9, or I think I was like 7. I was like 7 years old. I was running down the hallway of my parents' like mansion house. It was like a mansion basically. It was like really big. The hallway was really long. You know, I was running down the hallway, which had these huge sweeping windows and like, you know, along the hallway that would show you this beautiful view of this huge front yard, you know. And it was late. It was not late. It was like 9. It was like 9:30 p.m. or something like that. The sun had set in Jersey, and it was dark. It was in rural Jersey at 9 o'clock. It's fucking dark. You know, it's really dark. And so like the lights were on in the house, but the front yard was dark. And as I was running through the fucking yard, I swear to God, there was this man who looks exactly like this. He was standing in my fucking front yard, and because I had seen Dick Tracy when I was young or something like this, I dreamt him up out of my imagination, out of something like Flat Top from Dick Tracy, this movie with Warren Beatty from a long time ago that I believe that's a Disney film. It is a Disney film, I think, actually. Dick Tracy, it's a Disney film, believe it or not, I think. And Dick Tracy was so good, but there was this terrible guy named Flat Top who I was terrified of. I was like, Flatfoots are terrifying. They'll just shoot you with they'll just stand there cold dark with a black Beretta on their fucking head, and they'll do like and a card in their fucking hat, and like they'll just cap you with their 9mm Beretta or whatever. And you're like, what the fuck? And like and so I had this terrible Hat Man experience where I was like running down the hall. And I stopped because I knew I was being looked at. I knew it with all my heart and soul, and I still believe this. And I stopped. I stopped in my fucking tracks, and I turn, and I like this. I'm like running, and I stop because I'm like, wait, something saw me, and I stopped by the next window, and I'm like, something saw me, and I froze, and I turn, and I look out the fucking front door. Out the front window. And there's a fucking man in a fedora in our front fucking yard, looked black as hell like this, with red fucking eyes, except I couldn't see his eyes. I just imagined they're red in my mind, but I couldn't see his eyes. I couldn't see his eyes at all. And he was there, just standing there. And I swear to God, in my mind, he had a chopper. He had a fucking chopper, and he was standing in my front lawn like he was gonna fucking do something to me. And he was just standing there in my front lawn. It was entirely my imagination, I swear to God. But I dived for cover. I've never done something like that in my whole life. I've never dived for cover from a ghost, but I dived for cover. I smacked the fucking ground and started screaming and crying for my fucking parents. I dived for cover. I thought there was a fucking man with a gun in our front lawn who was about to spray me, and I howled bloody fucking murder, and I summoned my parents down from their bedroom and shit. And I was like, dude, there's somebody outside in our front yard. There's a man with a fedora and a machine gun in our front lawn. And they were like, you've been watching too much Dick Tracy. And I was like, yes, I have. But there was a man, and there was a man. There was a man there. There was a man there. He was gone by the time they got there. He was gone by the time I stood up. But he paralyzed me. When I hit the ground, I couldn't move. And they talk about this too. Like, when I hit the ground, I couldn't move for like 5 seconds. I was like, I can't move. I'm stuck on the motherfucking ground. He can't see me. I can't see him. I don't know what's going on. I'm stuck on the fucking ground. I'm stuck. I was like paralyzed for like 5 seconds. It was so stupid. And finally, I snapped out of it. I was like, I gotta get up. I gotta get up. There's this dude with a gun in the fucking, like in our yard. I've got to alert my parents. There's somebody here to rob my parents and stuff. That's what I thought it was. And that's what I still think it is. I still think that there was a man there who was there to rob my parents because they were rich or something like that. And because I saw him as he was walking across our front lawn, he like ditched. Because I screamed bloody murder. I did. I screamed bloody murder. I was like, get down here. Somebody's here. There's an intruder. Get here. Get here. I screamed bloody murder. I was like, get down here. Get down here now. You know? And they came and they were like, there's no one here. And I was like, there was somebody here. There was somebody here. There was somebody here. You ever had that? Fucking annoying. And so, that's why this is so good, is because this stuff plays to people who lived in the boondocks before the age of the cell phone. When you were just fucked, you've got a base. This is what horror movies used to be about. If Michael Myers comes to you, this is what horror movies were for a long time. If Michael Myers comes to your fucking house, the likelihood of a cop coming to intercept you, to intercept him before he kills you is like fucking frankly unlikely. It's like a 2% chance or something. It's not going to happen. The guy's going to kill you before whatever help comes, you know. So this is like my worst nightmare. It's what I'm scared of most. Being out in the boondocks, like with no help, no cell phone, no gun, nothing. It's like my worst nightmare.
Her gaze on the staircase leading to the upstairs bedrooms. It's impassable. The heat coming from the upper floor is too intense. The smoke is too thick.
Like you would jump at shadows back then. You would be scared of your own shadow creeping on the ground. Because you'd be like, oh God, that shadow doesn't belong there. That means I'm here with somebody and I'm 20 minutes from the nearest cop. At least 20, if not 45 minutes from the nearest cop or something. So shadows on the fucking ground would cause you to jump. You'd be like, oh no, there's a man's shadow. What is it? And it'd be your father or something like that, right? And you'd be like, oh God, it's my father. You scared the living shit out of me, because anything out of the normal at all, like back then, it would just cause you to panic. And you know what? I guess this is where I'm going with this. I miss the fear. I don't miss that uncertainty and the creeper of it. You would get these creeping, tingling senses in your nerves if something was out of order that I don't miss. I swear to God, since the cell phone age, that creeping, tingling sense of suspense when something isn't right, like that shit is like, now you're just like, well, if anything isn't right, I just go into my fucking pocket and I can pull out my cell phone and I call 911. So nothing's really too scary. But back then it was super creepy. If something was out of sorts, or there was a shadow creeping around, like on the ground around the corner when you're somewhere you shouldn't be, or something like that, or there somewhere, or that shadow somewhere shouldn't be, like in your house or something like that, you would freak the fuck out. And it would be, maybe your friend would be creeping up on you or something like that, but you would still panic. You would fucking freak out. You would be like, I can't control the situation. I'm an hour from the closest cop. What do? I can't kill somebody. I'm not armed or whatever, right? And so they made movies about it. That's what horror movies are. That's what Camp Crystal Lake is. It's like, you know that there's no cops near Camp Crystal Lake in Friday the 13th. So some psycho lady decides to go on a goddamn axe murder spree or something like that. What can you do? This is why I keep non-lethals and a taser always within reach, and all types of crazy shit, and all types of weird traps and stuff, and weird tricks that I learned as a drug dealer. Things that you can do. Like going out of my house, I don't do something, but if anybody comes into my house and doesn't do that thing, they get hurt very badly. And it's not like even that scary of a thing for me. But it is for them. You know, it's not scary for me because I know it's there, but it is for them. If they try to come in, it's like bad news bears for them. So like, you know, like I think my stepfather's scared of it. He, like, you know, I think he really wants to come into my house, but I think he knows better. You know, but they can freely come in my house because they know the deal. But it's just interesting, you know, because because I grew up like until I was like 11 years old, you would be really scared of facing a situation like this on your own. You would be very scared of it. I carried a knife since I was like, well, I didn't carry a knife because they wouldn't let you. They wouldn't let you bring knives to school. Or I would have. The minute that they let me bring knives to school, when I was like 15 years old, I began to realize that nobody was going to tell me I couldn't have a knife. So I just started doing it. I started carrying a knife everywhere I went. And I still do. I still carry a knife on my fucking belt. I don't have it because my pants aren't on. But if I leave the fucking house, I put a knife on my motherfucking belt and I get ready to shank somebody. And I've done that since I was 13. You understand? You guys roll with knives? All my friends do. Every one of my friends, they don't leave the house without a knife. My mother, she doesn't leave the house without a fucking stick you in the fucking chest knife. She full-blown doesn't. Because it's like, you know, you need something. You need something if something bad happens, right? So yeah, like, so I carry, like, you know, often I'll carry taser, but most often it's bear mace. I carry a bear mace on my wallet at all times, and you know, and anybody on the streets fucks with me, I'm gonna incap you. I'm gonna incap the whole sidewalk square. It's not just you. I'm gonna incap the general area. It's not just them. Like, if it could be a crowd of people, I'm gonna incap all of them. If anybody fucks with me, even if it's like a 5-man, and they come and they're like, oh, we're the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, we're gonna stick you for something you did 20 years ago or something like that. I'm like, okay, fine, but my motherfucker, I'm gonna incap this whole general 100-foot area all over, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, it's gonna incap me too, but it's gonna incap them. And see, I'm on the non-receiving side of it. Incap, it means that you're on the ground fucking crying like you can't do anything, right? And I'm kicking you in the nuts.
Ginny screams up the staircase.
I know, because I've seen it. We used to fuck with bear mace quite a bit. I've seen a man hit the ground after bear mace. I've seen it. It's like, you're down, you're out. Like, bear mace, that'll lay you out. It'll lay you out so quick. It's about as quick as getting shot. It's like about as long as it takes you to pull a trigger on a gun. It's about as long as it takes you to pop a fucking bear mace and just spray them and shit. It's about the same amount of time, really. About the same principle, really. You just press down your left fucking finger on that motherfucking button, and you've incapped like a whole 50-foot area in front of you that they've got to deal with. They're like, especially if you just keep spraying. If you keep spraying, they've got to run. You know, and I mean, I've seen it before. We used to fuck with bear mace quite a bit, and I had some hostile ass motherfucking punker friends who like to fight each other and shit. So we've had bear mace fights, and it's not fun.
Stinging from the smoke. She keeps them open, though.
I've known all my life that, yeah, the bear mace stays by the bear mace stays by the front door. The gun stays in the gun safe in the fucking the living room. By the door preferably, but I mean, sometimes you can't actually get that. You know, I have several safes, and I'm not going to say where they are, but yeah. And like, you know, and you don't ever put the gun where you can get something, because bear mace should always be readily available. And then all the other stuff that you do to prep yourself for something like this, like keep a knife tucked in your fucking pocket at all times. Like my father, he carried a fucking pocket knife that was like something like 5.5 inches long or something. It wasn't big. It was just because it was thin, but it was long. It was like, you know, it was long. It was like as long as my middle finger. It was like that long. It was like as long as this middle finger. It was crazy. And like that shit, and he kept that in his pocket his whole fucking life, and he wasn't scared of anybody because he knew he would shank anybody who came in his personal space. I learned it from him. I mean, I'm sorry, but I did. I learned it from him. And all of my friends, all of my life, all of my friends, they carry knives.
Children.
None of them have ever been fucked with before. One of the reasons I'm able to stroll through the motherfucking ghetto freely is anybody who walks past me can see the knife on my hip. And yes, I will fucking shank you.
Finally,
you know,
a figure.
I'm not gonna do that unless you attack me. But I mean, yes, I will fucking shank you. I've been looking for the opportunity all of my goddamn life.
Is from the smoke.
I'll shank you if you fuck with me. If you, like, defensively, you understand? I'll break every bone in somebody's body if they ever attack me. I warn them sometimes. I'm like, look, it's not the same. I've been bottling it up all of my fucking life, just to rage on somebody. It's not the same. You don't want to fuck with me. You warn them up front. You're like, I'm not that normal guy who could deal with being insulted or whatever. I'm not that guy.
Hurdles down the stairs. Another follows close behind.
And so yeah, so when I was like 13, I just started carrying a 6-inch blade. I mean, would you like to see it? I've shown it to you guys before. It's right over here. You know? Yeah, here it is. I was like, oh yeah, I kept it over here closer to me, right? Yeah. Right now, it's just an X-Acto knife. But, I mean, if I slash you with this, you're gonna know. This is gonna cut right through your fucking skin and leave, like, a deep, inch-long motherfucking, like, gouge. And I'm gonna slash. I'm not stabbing you with this. I'm slashing you with this fast. You know what I'm saying? And this motherfucker's right here. Yeah, sure, the blade will break, but that's what I want. I don't want to kill anybody. I want to break the blade off in the person. Give him some lead poisoning. But only if they fuck with me. Otherwise, I don't care. I was like, wait, over there is the taser and the bear mace. And I was like, oh, wait, I've kind of, sometimes I jumble things around. I'm like, I'll mix it up a little bit. I don't want to be predictable. So sometimes the knife's over here and the bear mace is over there. Sometimes the bear mace is over here because you know, you ever had this thing where you're like, well, if the defensive weapon is where I can't reach it, then it's no longer a defensive weapon, is it? It's just a paperweight. So I usually keep it closer. I keep things like that closer to me. not near the door usually. Though I do keep a taser by the door. And when I went to the fucking the Bellingham No Kings riots, I kept a taser flashlight in my fucking pocket. You know, somebody said, hello, hello, and it was a girl. So I was like, oh, thank God it's a girl. But when somebody hammered hello, hello at me, I went reaching for my flashlight. And she thought I was, like, putting my phone away. But no, I went reaching for my fucking flashlight because I was like, I don't know this person. I don't know what they want. What is it? Who is it? You know? I was scared it might be my ex. Because, you know, and like, because I think she hates me. She shouldn't hate me. I didn't do anything to her. I didn't cheat on her. I didn't do anything to her. I broke up with her because she wasn't the one, but that's what you're supposed to do. So, like, no, I don't think my ex would have a reason to stalk me to the point where she would show up at a protest. But the way that girl talked, I got scared and I went for my flashlight for a second because I was like, oh, God, am I being assaulted in public and shit? It is weird to be that fucking paranoid, you know, but I am. I'm that paranoid. It sucks. When you've been a drug dealer, it's hard to shed those practices. You know, I carry a weapon with me almost everywhere I go. I don't ever talk about it. I don't ever tell anyone. I just do it. You know, I often, almost all of my life, I keep it tucked inside my pants. You don't want anybody to see it because it's a 5-inch blade. You might catch a fucking charge for that. In some states, it's a bad charge to carry a really big blade. You got to be careful. So I don't fucking broadcast that shit, you know? I keep it tucked inside my pants.
George Jr., and their hair is singed from the flames.
Now, when I walk through the ghetto, I keep the blade in my fucking pocket where you can fucking see it, like it's on my hip, and I'm ready to grab it with my left hand and pull it like, you know, Jesse the Kid, or sorry, Billy the Kid or whatever. I want to quick draw some blade from my fucking pocket and just be like this, you know, really fucking fast.
The boys.
My other knife is in the other room, and I'm not going to show it because understanding what the knife is completely ruins the trick, because I have a very, very special knife that if I stab you with it, you fucking die.
Are hysterical. They tell their parents.
I mean, you know, I have a very special knife that I don't ever take out of its case or anything like this, but I have a very, very special knife that I keep in my bedroom because if I stab you with it, you fucking die.
But they tried to get into their younger sibling's bedroom. But
normal people don't do stuff like that, right? Like, it's weird. I'm not normal. I mean, you know, living in the ghetto, living in the barrio, really, it was the barrio. Living in the barrio as a drug dealer and having $3,500 on me made me a very paranoid person. I didn't lose those feelings.
They couldn't.
I still have that really bad. I really love having dogs around. The dogs give me such good peace. I gotta say, the dogs are like so good. The dogs that are around me, I love that they're there because you just know, it's coming. You know it's coming. Like, it's so awesome. You know whatever it is coming. There's warning always. We're more likely to get them than they are to get me, or I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have been comfortable being here. You know. The odds are stacked in our favor if anybody were to come. You know, it's funny.
Now
I don't like home intruders like this. They scare me.
The heat, everything else disappears.
This guy burned the house to get them out.
She casts a final glance upstairs as her husband.
I hate people like this. They're just psycho.
The number in Jenny's head is now 5. 5 of her kids are up those stairs, and none of them are coming down. A moment later, Jenny, George, and the 4 kids who are accounted for are standing outside. It's freezing cold, and they're all still in their nightgowns. But George doesn't hesitate. He races off to fetch the ladder they keep against the side of the house. The others follow, their bare feet slapping against the icy ground. But around the corner of the home, another shock awaits them. Their ladder is gone. Following this, they go to their garage to get their truck, so they can drive it up to the window and climb up. Now, the Sodders have 2 trucks, but when George tries the ignition on both of them, neither engine will start.
It's a criminal mischief dude who just set this all up so they would just fail.
George can't believe it.
It's like some kind of Saw puzzle murder. That's fucked up.
Both trucks worked perfectly fine just yesterday. He bolts out of the garage, desperately searching for something, anything that might help. There's an old rain barrel near the home, and so George tries to throw some water into the flames.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you do? Your family's in there.
The water inside the barrel is frozen solid. Because of this, George is reduced to shouting the children's names over and over at the house. But in return, all he hears is the roar of the inferno. While the house continues to burn, the oldest daughter, Marion, dashes away down the dark, freezing road. The Sauter's phone doesn't work, but their neighbors just might. She's still barefoot, and there isn't another house for quite a while.
Oh
last,
god,
she
that's
runs
also
into
another
the
nightmare.
road.
It's like, oh my god, do I have to run down this road barefoot for like a mile because there's so much glass and stone and stuff. And this has happened a couple of times. A couple of times maybe your shoes get stolen or you get stranded or somebody drives off and your shoes were in the car or something like that, right? And I've had to walk down asphalt like that. And like, dude, walking down a road in this country in bare feet is a fucking nightmare. Your feet get so fucked up.
Flow down her cheeks as the neighbor lets her in and points her to their
Yeah,
phone.
her feet are bloody at that point. Oh, God.
Shaking from head to toe, Marion manages to place the call, but the operator doesn't respond. Marion is beside herself. This can't be happening. The neighbor grabs his coat and rushes for the door, informing her that he'll drive into town and alert the fire chief in person. Fayetteville's fire chief, F.J. Morris, is fast asleep when the Sauter's neighbor arrives. Once Morris gets filled in, he begins the process of alerting Fayetteville's other volunteer firefighters. Their department operates by using a phone tree, which means one calls the other, calls the other, calls the other. It's time-consuming, and it takes a while for all the volunteers to be notified, assemble at the firehouse, and then drive out to the Sauter's home. But even so, the emergency response to the fire feels less than urgent. The Sauter's home is only 2.5 miles from the firehouse, and yet the firefighters don't arrive on the scene
Told you.
until 7 hours.
I told you. Didn't I tell you? I said, this is really, really scary because you don't know if somebody's going to come. You know somebody's going to come or they'll lose their fire station, but you don't know when.
Later.
Why respond at all at that point? Just be like, well, we lost the call or something. At that point, 7 hours later, whether or not you respond, that house is burned down. That whatever it is, that house is burned down. I guarantee it. Why even respond at that point? That's like basically taking, that's like taking credit for it at that point.
By this point, the sun is up and the house is gone.
This is not what this looked like in 1945. I have a picture in my head of how it looks, and I think it's fairly accurate. This is not what this looks like. This is not the reality.
For hours, George and his family have helplessly watched the entire structure
Their
be
whole
reduced
family
to ashes
burned.
before their eyes, with their 5 children apparently trapped inside. There is no urgency from George or his family once the fire trucks finally pull up to the scene. There's no shouting or waving of arms. The time for that has long passed. For the past 7 hours, George has experienced more emotions than in the rest of his life combined. Complete terror, complete helplessness, rage at the firefighters' lackluster response, and finally, the horrific bitterness of losing 5 children before his very eyes. Now, on Christmas morning 1945, he's simply numb. The firefighters douse the smoldering wreckage with water. They search for the bodies of the missing children, but they can't find even a single bone. Fire Chief Morris says the fire must have incinerated them completely, and so he declares the children dead at the scene.
But they don't know.
The next day, December 26th, a coroner's jury declares the fire accidental, and by December 30th, death certificates are issued for the 5 kids. A state police inspector eventually arrives. Given that the house burned for so long and so completely, it's not easy to determine a cause, but in the end, he attributes the fire to faulty wiring. To George, it all happened so fast. Too fast. The fire department took so long to come put the fire out, but then afterwards, officials practically sprinted to declare the fire an accident and the children dead. It makes George uneasy. But what can he do? The Sodders try to move on. In the new year, George brings in dirt from off-site and covers the ruins. They plant a garden in remembrance of the children they lost. If the story ended here, it would be a mercy. The Sodders could mourn in peace. However, our story is just beginning. Shocking details are about to emerge. Details that suggest that this fire was no accident, and that the supposedly deceased Sodder children may actually be alive. It's spring. On a day like today, the sound of children's laughter should be echoing across the Sodders' property. Yet instead, it's silent. The surviving Sodders have been without a home for months, and the time has come to rebuild. But their new house won't be where the previous one stood, as the site of the fire is to remain a memorial garden forever. George is overseeing the construction of the family's new home nearby when he sees one of the workers approaching him. It's a telephone repairman, and he's discovered something odd. He leads George over to a nearby telephone pole and explains that when he ascended the pole on his ladder, he expected to find the remnants of the telephone wire that used to lead to the Sodders' old house. Instead, though, he found no burned wire dangling there at all. Rather, it was completely severed, cut cleanly, intentionally. Immediately, George realizes what that means. The phone lines didn't melt in the fire. Someone cut them, and they would have needed a ladder to do it. A ladder. George thinks back to the night of the fire, and suddenly he takes off across the yard, searching wildly under bushes and rubble.
I'm gonna shut my door.
It's
I'll
not
be right
until
back.
reaching the back of the property where the yard falls off into a ditch that he finds what he's looking for. It's his ladder, the one that he kept propped up on the side of the house, the one that he could not find to save his children on the night of the fire. And it's here where he realizes it wasn't misplaced. Someone moved it. George feels dizzy, nauseous even. The blood is pounding in his temples. A whole new series of details are flooding his mind. The wrong number in the middle of the night. The thump on the roof. His trucks that wouldn't start when he needed them most. And this is when it hits him. This fire may not have been an accident at all. George forces himself to breathe and tries to clear his head. He reminds himself that the investigators already determined the cause. It was faulty wiring. And yet, George can't bring himself to believe it. He was in the house when it happened. The investigators weren't. Now, a final memory comes back to George. When he emerged from his dark bedroom into the living room, it was bright. And not just because of the flames either. He's certain that the lights were still on. And if the lights in the house were on, it means the fire couldn't have been started by an electrical short. Otherwise, the house's power would have failed, and it would have been completely out. He rushes to tell Jenny, and she remembers it all the same way he does. In her recollection, the lights were definitely on when they came out of the bedroom. In her mind, she returns to the moment after she hung up the phone. She closed the curtains, she locked the door, but no, she didn't turn the lights off before going back to bed. She left them on for her daughter. So if the house had electricity at the time, the lights should have been on, and they were. All at once, a realization rushes over them. Her eyes meet his, and the word on their lips, arson. At this point, there's no stopping it. George and Ginny's minds are running wild. considering every possibility. They've lost so much, and the idea that someone could have wished this upon them, that someone could have actually done this to their family, is staggering. Everything Ginny thought she knew has been thrown into question. She asks herself, if it's possible that someone in their community had started this fire on purpose, then what else is possible? What else could the investigators and officials have been wrong about? Can she believe anything she's been told about the fire? About the fate of her 5 little children? Doubt begins to gnaw at her. She can't stop thinking about that night, picking apart every tiny detail in her mind. Ginny can't bring herself to accept that her 5 young children actually perished in those flames. Perhaps it's the wishful thinking of a mother who has suffered an unthinkable loss, but perhaps not. Because what really keeps Ginny awake at night are the facts of this case, or rather, the lack thereof. Why were there no screams or cries for help during the fire? Why are there no skeletal remains in the wreckage? They say burning flesh can be smelled from miles away, and if that's true, why in the world didn't they smell it? She begins to fixate on these details and on the bones. She hears about something that happened in a neighboring community, another fire. In it, 7 people died, but in that case, 7 skeletons were recovered. And this gnaws at her. She can't understand why there were no skeletons in the ashes of her home. She decides to conduct an experiment. She has plenty of animal bones in the trash from cooking chicken and pork chops for the family. And so she decides to take these bones and put them in her oven, making it as hot as she can. Interestingly, no matter how hot she gets the oven, she can't get the bones to turn to ash. Now, it's not the most scientific experiment. Her oven is not as hot as the house fire would have been, but to her, it's enough. Ginny, in her state, won't be convinced otherwise. In her heart, she knows that her children's bones could not have possibly been turned to ash. And with this, an employee at a local crematorium concurs, informing Ginny that human bones remain after being subjected to temperatures comparable to that of a house fire. It's not definitive proof, but it's more than enough for a mourning mother to cling to. No bones were recovered, which means that there's a chance, even if a small one, that the Sutter children weren't in the fire at all. And if they weren't in the fire, it's possible that they're still alive. But this is hardly a comforting thought, because if they are still alive, where are they? Ginny knows that there's no chance that they wandered off before the fire, or fled during it, and somehow got lost. They were young, but not so young that they couldn't find help. Maurice, the oldest, was 14. And if they had escaped the fire, but succumbed to the elements, their bodies surely would have been found by now. So the Sauter children didn't wander off, and it seems like they didn't die in the fire either. This leaves one other possibility, but it's unthinkable. It's insane. Ginny and George both know it, and yet they can't bring themselves to believe any other explanation than this. That fire was nothing but a distraction, a cover for the real crime that took place that night. Kidnapping. Now, instead of grieving, the Sauters begin to think back on every strange moment from the months prior, every confrontation or mysterious occurrence, the kinds of events a person writes off as nothing to worry about, resurfacing and filled with sinister possibility. Which is to say that to the Sauters, every acquaintance, every neighbor is now a suspect. George thinks back, trying to recall any recent interactions that felt a bit strange at the time, and one in particular comes to mind right away.
Stupid Starfield music. finally. Yay.
Months prior, a strange man showed up at the Sodders' home, inquiring if George, who owned a hauling company, was hiring. George said that he wasn't, and yet the traveler still hung around the house a bit, like he wasn't taking no for an answer. It was an uncomfortable situation. George followed him around the yard, trying to ride the line between being polite and getting the traveler to move on. The young man started to point out things about the yard, as if trying to impress him with his handyman knowledge. And, circling to the home's rear, George recalls that the man pointed to the fuse boxes on their wall and said, "This is going to cause a fire someday." In that moment, George concluded that this man had no idea what he was talking about. After all, he had just had the boxes repaired to the company. Eventually, the man left, and George went into the house. George came home. Did he hang around, bitter about being turned down?
I didn't think he would take that many of those. That's a really strong gun, but he's a
Jenny
strong guy.
recalls something else. Another curious event that happened shortly before the fire. One day, she was working in the kitchen when, through the window, she saw the kids coming home from school. But in that moment, her eyes were drawn to something else. Behind her kids, a car she didn't recognize was parked on the street. Inside it was a man, and he appeared to be watching them. All of them, it seemed. The children, Jenny, the house itself, and the way he was looking at them. And felt unusual, aggressive even. It made Jenny uneasy, but once her kids were inside, the car drove away, and she sighed in relief. But now, she's left to wonder, was this man doing some sort of reconnaissance? But unfortunately, that's only the beginning of the suspect list. As an Italian immigrant, George had strong beliefs about the leader of the country he left behind. He was an outspoken critic of Mussolini, which ruffled the feathers among Fayetteville's Italian-American community. George had no business associates with He and Nick fell out over politics, and people fell apart, encouraging to show, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed. You're gonna pay for the dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini." Finally, Jenny remembers the strange call she received on the phone right before the fire. It seemed like a wrong number, but now she thinks maybe it was the conspirators calling to make sure they were home. George and Jenny share their suspicions with the police. When they were not convinced, they agreed to investigate and put up notices around town and in the newspaper, asking for leads related to the missing children. And soon, series of disturbing reports started around April 1946. A small tape from the morning after the fire reveals that they saw a young man remove something from the ashes.
Where'd their bodies go?
This was before or after the firefighters arrived. There was a crowd of people for the thief to blend into.
That was it, huh? Yeah, they went out pretty quick.
The young man is Lonnie Johnson.
They were way higher than me, too.
And with this, an item belonging to the Sodders is discovered in his possession.
But I missed a bunch of the story because this was all quiet and crazy. So turn down like the music because it interferes with the voice, and then turn down the effects to 30 because it's a little loud. There we go. And then
It's a block and the young man started to point out things about the yard, as if trying to
so somebody
impress him with
came
his
and
handyman
visited,
knowledge. And circling to the home's rear, George recalls that the man pointed to the fuse boxes on their wall and said, "This is going to cause a fire someday."
Wow, he predicted
In
it.
that moment, George concluded that this man had
Predicted
no
it.
idea what he was talking about. After all, he had just had the boxes looked at and approved by the power company. Eventually, the man left, and George put the incident out of his mind. But now, George can't help but wonder, had the traveler really moved on down the road? Or did he hang around, bitter about being turned down for work?
I like how hard it's getting as they get
In
higher.
instance,
It's
Jenny
good.
recalls something else.
Better than Fallout.
Another curious event that happened shortly before the fire. One day, she was working in the kitchen when, through the window, she saw the kids coming home from school. But in that moment, her eyes were drawn to something else. Behind her kids, a car she didn't recognize was parked on the street. Inside it was a man, and he appeared to be watching them. All of them, it seemed. The children, Jenny, the house itself, and the way he was looking at them. It felt unusual, aggressive even. It made Jenny uneasy, but once her kids were inside, the car drove away, and she sighed in relief. But now, she's left to wonder, was this man doing some sort of reconnaissance? But unfortunately, that's only the beginning of the suspect list. As an Italian immigrant, George had strong beliefs about the leader of the country he left behind. He was an outspoken critic of Mussolini, which ruffled the feathers among Fayetteville's Italian-American community. George had one business associate in particular, who we'll call Nick. He and Nick fell out over their politics, and in their final fight, Nick allegedly shouted, "Your goddamn house is going up in smoke, and your children are going to be destroyed.
What?
You're gonna pay for the dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini."
What? Okay, that's what this was? A Nazi sympathizer.
Finally, Jenny remembers the strange call she received on the phone right before the fire. It seemed like a wrong number, but now she thinks maybe it was the conspirators calling to make sure they were home. George and Jenny share their suspicions with the police. Though they're not convinced, they agree to investigate and put up notices around town and in the newspaper, asking for leads relating to the missing children or the fire. And soon after, a series of disturbing reports start rolling in. Around April 1946, a spectator from the morning after the fire reveals that they saw a young man remove something from the ashes. It's unclear if this was before or after the firefighters arrived, though once they got there, there was a crowd of people for the thief to blend into. The police track down this lead and identify the young man as Lonnie Johnson, a local thief. And with this, an item belonging to the Sodders is discovered in his possession. It's a block and tackle, a sort of rope and pulley George often used to repair vehicles for work. Lonnie swears up and down that he had nothing to do with the fire. And yet, when pushed, he admits that not only did he steal this tool, but he was at the house the night before the fire.
What?
In a stunning revelation, Lonnie says that he took the ladder and that he used it to cut the phone line. Ostensibly, this was so that if he was caught stealing, the Sodders couldn't call the police before he escaped. But he says he never did steal anything other than that block and tackle, which he only took after the house had already burnt down. It's a very odd thing to admit to, while denying any further involvement. Like the man in the car, or George's business associate Nick, Lonnie, by all accounts, seems like an agent in a larger conspiracy. But in order to prove something of that magnitude, the Sodders are going to need a staggering amount of new evidence. And surprisingly, that's exactly what's about to arrive. In 1946, an eyewitness comes forward to the police. The man is a bus driver. He claims that while driving past the Sodders' home during the night of the fire, he witnessed a person throwing, quote, balls of fire at the house. It's unclear why he didn't report this at the time. Perhaps he thought it was some sort of Christmas celebration or a controlled demolition. Or maybe he thought it was an act of violence and he just didn't want to get involved. But nevertheless, it's enough to compel the family to return to the scene of the fire to see if there's anything they might have missed. While the family's there, toddler Sylvia gets away from her mother. A strange ball-like object in the yard catches her eye. She travels across the lawn on her small feet, arriving at the object and picking it up. It's shaped like a ball, but it has a weird cap on one end. Her parents finally notice her and come over, taking the device from her hand. George has no idea what it could be, but his oldest, John, who's now home on leave from the army, identifies it immediately. It's an incendiary grenade, a weapon specifically designed to start fires. This would explain the thump on the roof right before the fire began, as well as the rolling noise that came afterward. It also supports what the Sodders have suspected all along, that the fire started upstairs and not in a downstairs fuse box, as the police investigation determined. The Sodders are bewildered by this new evidence, but confident that it'll finally convince local law enforcement to investigate the fire as an arson case. But surprisingly, the police do no such thing. Military weaponry found at the scene is evidently not convincing enough. But even still, other jaw-dropping evidence continues to pour in. That same year, a pair of women reach out to the police. They claim to have seen the Sodder children alive. One of them, who works at a roadside restaurant hours outside of Fayetteville, says she saw them the morning after the fire. She served them breakfast and also noticed a car with Florida license plates parked outside. The other woman, who works at a hotel in Charleston, West Virginia, says she saw 4 of the 5 children check in around midnight a week or so after the fire with a group of unfriendly adults who spoke Italian.
Found something.
When the Sodders learn of this, it sparks an array of conflicting emotions. There's joy because their kids might still be alive, but new horrors too.
I've discovered something.
What if their kids were taken by fellow Italians as revenge for George's anti-Mussolini views? If that's true, the children could be back in Italy, thousands of miles beyond the reach of the police in West Virginia. By this point, the Sodders are beyond frustrated with the lack of results from law enforcement. For the past year, it's been one staggering revelation after another. Yet the local police are behaving as though the faulty wiring explanation still holds water. The Sodders recognize that they must appeal to a higher authority, and so in 1947, they write to the FBI. They receive a response from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover himself, but it isn't good news. Hoover maintains that this case is a local matter, and that the FBI has no jurisdiction. But even still, the Sodders refuse to be stonewalled, and in 1947, they hire a private investigator to get to the bottom of it. As the PI questions various people around Fayetteville, he keeps hearing one particular rumor again and again, that Fire Chief Morris himself, the man responsible for responding to the fire, discovered a human organ in the ashes. It's a bizarre and potentially major revelation. On Christmas Day, the firefighters claim that there was absolutely no trace of the children's bodies. But this rumor, conflictingly, implies that they did recover human remains and hid the evidence. Even stranger, it's been said that they placed the organ in a wooden dynamite box and buried it somewhere on the property. It's a strange story, and the PI doesn't quite know what to make of it. But he hears it from so many people that he's compelled to tell the Sodders about it. Right away, the family rushes back to the scene of the fire, and thereafter, they begin digging. It's painful to disturb the flowers they planted in honor of their lost children, but they'll do anything to learn more about what happened. And soon, sure enough, one of their shovels hits something. It's wooden, hollow. George, Ginny, and their surviving children gather around, as the box is uncovered and hoisted to the surface. It's a dynamite box, just like their PI said it would be.
What?
Collectively, they hold their breath as the lid comes off. And inside, as promised, is an undeniable lump of dried and shriveled flesh. Resultingly, a local funeral director is brought in to examine the contents. But they're even more confused than the Sodders are, because it's not a human organ. Rather, it's beef, a beef liver to be exact. And even stranger, it's not even burned. At their wits' end, the Sodders decide to confront Fire Chief Morris face to face. And once pushed, Morris makes an astonishing confession. Except, it's not a confession to some sinister conspiracy. Rather, he states that he was only trying to help, but made a mistake. Morris states that he's certain that the kids died in the fire, but watching the Sodder family desperately search for evidence to the contrary and destroying what was left of their own emotional well-being in the process was too much for him to bear. And so Morris says he did something very unorthodox. He got a hold of some beef liver, put it in the box, and buried it at the site. He then planted the rumors himself in the hopes that the Sodders might hear of it and dig up the box. From his strange, distorted point of view, he thought that this might be enough to get the Sodders to believe that their kids were truly dead. It's an odd scheme, one that doesn't seem likely to have ever worked. And it gets even stranger. When the Sodders go to retrieve the liver from the coroner, they find that it's disappeared
Gonna turn off my
from his
lights, so I'll
office.
be right back.
But even as this line of inquiry fails, another rises. The PI has one more lead to pursue, and it's perhaps the most promising. In 1947, the family's PI investigates one final lead in his search for the missing Sodder kids. He's curious about George's former business associate, Nick, who George fell out with over politics. The one who furiously made the bizarre claim about their house going up in smoke. George tells the PI that Nick was actually his employee at one time. They were close enough that when George needed a cosigner for an insurance policy on his home, Nick was willing to step in. However, they stopped talking after their fights over Mussolini. The PI secures a copy of the insurance policy, and shockingly, it's been updated since when George last saw it. As it turned out, Nick had increased the amount on George's home insurance by $250 right before the fire without telling George. It seems odd that such a move would even be possible without George's consent, but it does mean that, as a cosigner, Nick might have benefited if the entire Sodder family died in the fire. But that isn't even the most damning detail that the private investigator uncovers. As it turned out, Nick didn't just stand to benefit from the fire. He was actually a member of the coroner's jury that ultimately ruled the fire as an accident. Now, this fact is incredibly bizarre. A coroner's jury is made up of random citizens, like any jury, but their job is to look at the evidence presented in a mysterious death and determine if foul play was involved. Nick should not have been a part of this based upon his relationship to the family alone. And on top of that, as someone who could have benefited from their deaths, he's an obvious suspect. And yet, he was on the very jury that could have recommended he be investigated. Armed with this information, the Sodders go to the local prosecuting attorney and demand that Nick be investigated. It would seem like they had a decent case, but to their horror, the attorney looks at the evidence, then back to them, and politely states, "I don't want to bring a case against people with whom I live and eat." The Sodders are bewildered by this response. They're certain they're the victims of arson. Their kids are either dead or kidnapped, and they have strong evidence suggesting who did it. On top of this, there's evidence suggesting that there was misconduct among the coroner's jury, and now the prosecutor is refusing to do his job. Is this man in on it? Is he a part of the pro-Mussolini elements in town that wanted to see his family burn? Has Nick paid him off? What secrets is this West Virginia community keeping from its own members? Years pass. It's 1953 now, nearly 8 years after the fire, and the family is out of ideas. All that's left to them is to take out a billboard on the side of the road near their house. It features pictures of all 5 children, and it reads, what was their fate? Kidnapped, murdered, or are they still alive? With a $5,000 reward offered for information. Over the next decade, George and Jenny frequently receive letters in the mail from all over the country, with people claiming to have seen one of the children. They chase every lead, no matter how tenuous. Once, George sees a picture in the newspaper of a little girl who lives in New York. He thinks she looks like one of his missing daughters, and so he goes all the way there and demands that her parents let him see her. Unsurprisingly, they refuse. Yet, in his mind, he believes that they could be the beneficiaries of the kidnapping. But at the same time, it's just as possible that they're frightened parents with no reason to let a strange man see their daughter, and ultimately, he has to respect their wishes and return home. Jenny also pursues some rather thin leads with a similar level of aggression. She recalls the woman's testimony from the roadside motel, the one that claimed to see the children taken away in a car with a Florida license plate. As it turns out, Jenny has a brother who lives in Florida, and she gets it into her head to call him to see if he had anything to do with the alleged kidnapping. It's unclear why she would suspect this of her own brother, but she actually has the police produce records to prove that all of her brother's kids are his own. 1966. 21 years since the fire. By this point, the Sodders are searching for children who have, officially, been dead longer than they were alive. But the leads don't stop, so neither do they. That year, the family received a letter from a woman who writes that she overheard 2 men talking to each other, evidently claiming that they were Louis and Maurice Sodder. George travels to Texas to meet with them. However, the lead goes nowhere. A year later, in 1967, the Sodders receive another mysterious letter. Enclosed is a photograph of a young man with the same features and complexion as the men in their family. And sure enough, on the back of the photograph, there's a note that reads, Louis Sodder. But this letter didn't come from Texas, it came from Kentucky, but without a return address. No means of contacting the sender. And so, the Sodders hire yet another PI to go to Kentucky to find out what he can. But once the PI travels to Kentucky, the family never hears from him again. Perhaps he was just a con man who took the Sodders' money and ran. Or maybe it was something darker. Regardless, his disappearance is a final gut punch, because that is where the trail runs cold for the very last time. And so, we're left to grapple with the same questions that torture the Sodders themselves. It is, of course, possible that the children simply died in the fire. Maybe all 5 bodies really were incinerated. Or maybe the firefighters just didn't search thoroughly enough to find what remained. But an accidental fire burning hot all night doesn't explain the many contradictions and lies embedded in the evidence. It seems at least possible that their kids were kidnapped. Yet, in some ways, it might be less chilling to believe that they all died in that fire. Grief can do strange things to a person. By not accepting the deaths, Jenny and George became their own tormentors. As horrifying as the death of a child can be, there's nothing more terrifying than the unknown. Not accepting the simplest explanation meant that they forced themselves to imagine the worst. Forced themselves through years of false leads and disappointment, and led themselves to hurl terrible accusations at both strangers and family. the unknown. That is what ruined their lives. Not the fire, not the loss, just simply not knowing. The Sauter children stare down from their billboard on the highway, asking every driver who passes, what was our fate? Thank you all so much for listening. If you'd like more to hold you over until the next video, 7 more mystery.
Yeah, this was good. It's like mysteries, cool, late nights with Nexpo. Yeah, 7 hours for the firemen to rubs insane. Let's hear how his goes.
Link to that will be in the description. Anyway, we are going to go ahead and get into it, but as always, thank you for watching. To understand the disappearance of the Sauter children, we must first talk about their parents, George and Jenny Sauter, or by the father's birth name, Giorgio Sadu. Giorgio was born in Tola, Sardinia in 1895. He immigrated to the United States in 1908 when he was 13 years old. And like most European immigrants who came through Ellis Island, he Americanized his name and thus began a new chapter as George Sauter. Now, George originally came with an older brother, but he soon returned to Italy, leaving George by himself in America. The young teen found work in Pennsylvania, delivering water and supplies to railroad workers. And after a few years, George relocated to Smithers, West Virginia, where he worked as a coal miner by day and a taxicab driver at night. George would later meet his future wife, Jenny, or as she was known at the time, Janine Cipriani, whose father was the owner of a local store called The Music Box. Similar to George, Jenny had also come to America from Italy and had also Americanized her name to just Jenny. The two married and had 10 children between 1923 and 1943. That is a newborn every 2 years for 20 years. God bless them. And as mentioned earlier, they lived in Fayetteville, West Virginia, which during this time saw a boom in Italian immigrants due to the emerging coal industry. The 10 children, from oldest to youngest, were raised in a 2-story home, excluding the basement. The 10 children's names, as well as their age at the time of the disappearance, are as follows: John 23, Joe 22, Marion 19, George Jr. 16, Maurice 14, Martha 12, Louis 10, Jenny 8, Betty 5, and Sylvia 2. This family of a dozen lived in a 2-story home plus a basement in Fayetteville, West Virginia, and for a while, life seemed great. George was a smart and ambitious man, so naturally he moved up in the world, and eventually he and his older sons ran their own trucking company that hauled dirt for construction and later freight and coal. People who knew the Sauters considered them as, quote, one of the most respected middle-class families around. George was known for his outspoken beliefs on business, politics, and current events, and especially voiced his disdain for Benito Mussolini, the Italian dictator and leader of Italy's fascist party. Occasionally, George would get into heated arguments with members of Fayetteville's Italian community, a community that was having a particularly rough time in the United States during World War II, since Italy was allied with Germany throughout the war. Well, in 1945, the holiday season marked an important one for many Americans. After all, it was the first Christmas after the war had ended. George and Jenny celebrated Christmas Eve with 9 of their 10 children. as their second oldest, Joe, was away in the Army. Spirits were high as Marion brought toys for her younger siblings from her job at a local dime store. George Sr., along with the two oldest sons, John and George Jr., went to bed after a long day of work, while the younger children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Ginny, and Betty, begged their mother to stay up past their bedtime. Ginny agreed and took the youngest, Sylvia, with her to bed, as the 2-year-old slept in the same room as her and George. Ginny was woken up after midnight around 12:30 a.m. when the telephone...
It's the same exact video. I'm not gonna watch it twice.
A man dressed like a cop carrying a hit list of Democrats just assassinated a state lawmaker and her husband in Minnesota. We need to talk about it because there's so much misinformation flying around. Millions marched this weekend to protest Trump and his ICE raid while people were afraid, and perhaps in response, Trump declared what many are calling an illegal war on Dem cities. And Iran and Israel are bombing each other, civilians are dying, and now Trump says that the U.S. military may get involved. We're talking about all that and much more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, starting with this. A man who is dressed like a cop, armed to the teeth, and carrying a hit list of Democrats just assassinated a state lawmaker and her husband in Minnesota. But then there's also just so much misinformation going around, so let's break this down. Right, so as for the shootings themselves, at around 2 in the morning on Saturday, you had police receiving a call about gunfire at the home of Democratic State Senator John Hoffman. When the cops arrived, they found that Hoffman and his wife were both shot, but still alive, and they rushed them to the hospital. The charging documents and public statements suggesting that the couple's daughter actually made the 911 call. And then, around an hour and a half later, you had police in a neighboring suburb proactively checking on another lawmaker, Democratic State Representative Melissa Portman. And to their surprise, they said they found what appeared to be a police vehicle already in the driveway, complete with flashing emergency lights. And then they say they saw a man who appeared to be a police officer standing outside the front door, wearing a vest, a badge, a taser, the whole getup. With initial reports claiming he immediately opened fire after they confronted him, though police have since said it's unclear whether that actually happened. But either way, the cops said he retreated back inside and escaped out the back door, disappearing into the night. As for Portman, she and her husband were found dead inside the house from gun wounds. So that then resulting in what officials have called the largest manhunt in state history, with just an army of law enforcement fanning out over the county. Hundreds of detectives, more than 20 SWAT teams, drones, helicopters, and infrared technology all getting deployed in search of this one man. Within a few hours, they had the identity of a suspect. Right, and that thanks to this guy, David Carlson, who told police he received a concerning text message from his childhood friend and current 57-year-old roommate, Vance Belzer. The text from him reportedly saying that he had made some bad choices and he might be dead soon, and then adding, "I don't want to say anything more and implicate you in any way because you guys don't know anything about this. But I love you guys and I'm sorry for all the trouble this has caused." And according to Carlson, this came just a day after Belzer gave him 4 months worth of rent in advance, about $220 per month, and thanked him for their friendship. So fearing that his friend might take his own life, Carlson said that he called the police for help, but instead, he's a murder suspect, with him then just very quickly starting to find stuff. First up, you have the fake police vehicle parked outside of Hortman's home, a black Ford Explorer apparently owned by the suspect, and that reportedly containing at least 3 AK-47 assault rifles and a handgun. Then on Sunday afternoon, you had detectives reportedly finding a car and a half that they believe belonged to the suspect abandoned on a remote stretch of road about an hour's drive from the shooting. So they began searching house to house in the area, and soon an officer reported seeing a person that he thought was a suspect darting into woods nearby. And that, as you had a resident also reportedly seeing the man on a trail camera, which investigators confirmed. So they set up a 1 square mile perimeter, deployed drones and dogs, and eventually spotted it, with him reportedly being caught crawling through thick shrubs, and although he was armed, police say that no force was used in the arrest. And, perhaps not coincidentally, this happened not far from his farm, where he reportedly lived with his wife and kids. Now, as for what this guy's motivations were, they strongly appear to have been political. Police saying they found a list in his vehicle naming about 70 potential targets, largely consisting of Democrats, or people including Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, U.S. Representative Ilhan Omar, U.S. Senator Tina Smith, and State Attorney General Keith Ellison. And then with them, you also had doctors, community and business leaders, and locations for Planned Parenthood and other healthcare centers, according to reports. Right, and then all of that as police say they found flyers referencing the No Kings protest on Saturday, suggesting that he may have considered targeting a demonstration. And the anti-abortion angle, it seems to hold up, since Hortman, the lawmaker he killed, who served as Speaker of the House until this year, helped expand abortion rights during the 2023 session. And then as for Hoffman, right, the lawmaker who was injured, investigators are still trying to figure out whether he had any kind of relationship with the suspect. Right, and that because reportedly Belzer was appointed to the Minnesota Governor's Workforce Development Board, where Hoffman also served in 2016 by a Democratic governor. But with that, reportedly, while the two men attended at least one virtual meeting together, that doesn't necessarily mean that they were in direct contact. Right, and that because there's 41 people on that board, and sources told the New York Times that it would be easy for two members not to know one another. Now, with that said, as far as his political background, it's a little mixed, but it does seem to point in one direction. With a 2016 state report connected to the board listing his affiliation as none or other, and a 2020 report listing no party preference. Those state records also show that he registered as a Republican in the early 2000s and he voted for Trump last year, according to Carlson, with him also adding that Belzer was particularly passionate about opposing abortion and telling the Times he was recently struggling with financial and mental health challenges, though Carlson also said he had never heard him talk about the two lawmakers. Also, this guy's career history has shed some light on both his financial hardship and his political beliefs, with him reportedly working for major food brands like Nestle for decades, managing a 7-Eleven, managing a gas station, and working as an executive at an energy company, all at different times. Additionally, he and his wife apparently ran a private security company whose website claims that he had security work in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, which then may also explain how he obtained a fake police vehicle, since the firm claimed to have the same make and model of Ford Explorers that many police departments use. But then also with this, there's been a lot of talk about his religion, because according to the website of a Christian nonprofit that he and his wife led, he became an ordained minister in 1993 and traveled to what he called violent areas, so supposedly seeking out militant Islamists in order to share the gospel and tell them that violence wasn't the answer. And then more recently, he reportedly worked on agricultural projects in Central Africa and delivered sermons in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Sermons where he would preach things like, there's people, especially in America, they don't know what sex they are. They don't know their sexual orientation. They're confused. The enemy has gotten so far into their mind and their soul. Though also, according to CNN, he didn't mention abortion in any of the sermons they reviewed, and his social media largely shied away from politics. But despite all the different things that he was doing, you had Carlson saying to the Times that all of his business ventures just didn't work out, and it led to his financial difficulties.
Because nobody can stand him.
Quit all his jobs to go down there, and then he comes back and tries to find new jobs. Wasn't working out that good. And so reportedly picked up jobs at funeral service companies to pay the bills, which entailed removing dead bodies from houses and nursing homes. And so it's most of what we know about him right now. But generally what we're seeing is that many people who knew him are saying that the fact that he did this is a shock to them. For example, one fellow pastor saying, of all the people I know, he would not hurt a fly. I just cannot believe it. But there's still the question of whether some people should have seen this coming, and most notably, his family. Because reportedly he sent a group text to his wife and other family members on Saturday saying, Dad went to war last night. I don't want to implicate anybody. With him then adding to his wife, words are not going to explain how sorry I am for the situation. There's going to be some people coming to the house armed and trigger happy, and I don't want you guys around. Which then might possibly explain why police said that they found 2 handguns, passports for her and her children, and $10,000 in cash in the wife's car when they were stopped. But as for right now, the only person who's been charged is the husband, and he's facing several counts of murder, attempted murder, stalking, and firearms offenses, both state and federal. For now, that is where we are as the investigations continue and the gears of justice.
Because the wife and the kids are racist
too. Could have
too.
been so much worse. Because had the cops not proactively checked on the Hortman's home, we could be looking at more than 2 dead lawmakers right now. And in fact, according to police, we know that he tried to kill other people because he went to the homes of 2 other state lawmakers. They ringing the doorbell of one, but they were on vacation, and going to another's, but leaving after a real cop showed up. But still, of course, overall, just a horrible, terrifying situation, and our thoughts go out to everyone affected. But then, to try to shift gears from that to other news, well, Trump threw a military/personal birthday parade for himself on Saturday. Millions of Americans came out to protest the ICE raids going on across the U.S., and now in response, Trump has doubled down on his agenda, leading many to believe that Trump just declared war on sanctuary cities. But let's start with the protests themselves, because they were largely part of the No Kings protests that were originally set up to be a counterpart to the military parade going on in D.C. A parade that was officially said to be for the Army's 250th birthday, though it was also Trump's birthday that same day, which then led to claims that this was a move by Trump to mimic dictators around the world. Which actually brings us to one of the biggest talking points this weekend, and that is, were either of these a flop? And for many, that really mattered because both events were seen as checking the pulse of how America feels about Trump right now. When you took a look out there on the right, you had people claiming that the No Kings protests were a massive failure and a low turnout, while on the other side, there were similar statements being made about the parade. But I will say, it is very safe to say that the No King protests were not a flop in terms of attendance. Just in San Diego alone, there were 2 rallies, with one getting around 60,000 people by itself. And that's just within the city. 11 rallies total were planned around the county. Also over in LA, there was a similar story with multiple rallies across the county getting tens of thousands of attendees each, with the energy of these things being described as palpable, though not for everyone. With one of the things that popped up there being this moment where a local news helicopter pilot crashed out over his marriage.
I am married. I am legally married. I am legally married. That's about the only way you can really say it. I am legally married, but I am not looking at now at all. I just had a bunch of debacles with my personal life. Yes, it's true. I know. It's hard to believe.
Right, and that messy situation for that guy stood in stark contrast to what happened in San Francisco, where the crowd was super organized and even made a big "No King" sign out of their bodies. And then over in Seattle, it looks like they may have had one of the biggest rallies with at least 70,000 protesters going. Right, and with that, I think you get the idea, right? This pattern played out essentially across every major U.S. city, including in deeply red states like Idaho. Which Idaho, I didn't know you had it in you. There was a massive crowd that showed up to the state capitol to protest against Trump. You know, in general, these protests were extremely peaceful with
Wow, look at Idaho.
departments in places like Seattle and San Diego even praising the protesters for their events. Although, that said, there were some incidents. In LA, there were clashes with police downtown after an unlawful assembly was declared, although they don't seem to be as intense as they were last week. Then in Arizona, there were reports that someone got arrested after demonstrators saw a brandishing a gun. And speaking of guns, possibly the worst incident was in Salt Lake City, where an innocent bystander was killed. And while things are a bit murky as of recording, police claim that Arturo Gamboa came to the protest armed with a rifle before being confronted by two members of the protest peacekeeping team. According to reports, they went to confront Gamboa with their handguns drawn, and that's when he raised his rifle to the fire position and ran at the crowd shooting. But then, one of the peacekeepers shooting at Gamboa 3 times, hitting him once, giving him a minor wound, and footage from the scene, it makes it seem like Gamboa tried to blend in with the crowd before he was noticed with the rifle. And horribly, one of the other shots ended up hitting and killing Arthur Falasa Alu, who was just peacefully at the protest. And notably there, despite not being the one to actually shoot and kill Alu, Gamboa was charged with murder. The police there saying that his actions created a dangerous scenario that led to the death. And that, as right now, it's not clear if either of the peacekeepers will face any charges. Though then with all that, while horrible, you had many saying that it was shocking that there was just one instance of something like that when there was millions and millions of people across the country peacefully protesting. Right, and then, as it pertains to the comparison that's being made, we move to the military parade. Because again, it was officially meant to be a celebration of the Army, and before the parade, you saw troops conducting outreach by allowing people to pose with things like anti-tank weapons. And then during the parade itself, you saw what you'd kind of expect. Troops, tanks, and TAC marching around. You know, taking in the arguments of whether a parade like this is good for the country, you had history buffs probably having a great time seeing troops dressed in various uniforms that the Army's used across its existence. However, it was also heavily criticized. Right, obviously, you had many feeling like this was an attempt to make Trump look dictatorial since it also happened on his birthday. There, you also had critics pointing out that it fell far short of that and compared it to other troops marching around the world, with then some even claiming that this was a subtle fuck you by the troops. So that is essentially impossible to confirm because it requires us to get into the minds of the troops. And you had many disputing that the troops were doing this as kind of an FU, noting that the U.S. doesn't really place a lot of emphasis on parade marching. So there, you had plenty of people saying, even if you keep that in mind, a lot of this was still considered sloppy, which then also would be surprising because many vets will tell you that they haven't done it in years outside of basic training. Whereas, you know, in places like North Korea, the military marching is part of the pageantry of the regime. So there were some aspects of the parade that just kind of looked bad no matter how you sliced it. Like, for example, when troops walked by and they were holding up their drones, leading to a ton of people across the aisle saying that it made the military look weak. And then there was also the corporate sponsorships, which I will say, I did not know were coming, and during the parade, you had moments like...
Special thanks to our sponsor,
Coinbase sponsored this parade. Gee, big surprise. Why are all the Griptonomics people right wing? I wonder why.
Coinbase.
You then also saw Jumbotron ads for UFC and other companies. But then all of that, it brings us to the debate over how big the crowd actually was there. Because you've had plenty of people on the left posting photos and videos from the event that seem to show a pretty low turnout, with figures like Hassan Piker, for example, saying millions of people on the streets of U.S. protesting Trump. Meanwhile, no one is attending his birthday party. This is proof that the repulsive far-right hug box that Twitter and online spaces have become is not representative of real-world support for MAGA and right-wing policy. But then you saw MAGA folks arguing that those examples are misleading because they allegedly show the crowd well before the parade started, and they pointed to official government photos that seemed to show a far bigger crowd. Then you saw this back and forth where people were claiming that the photos were either edited or just used angles that made the crowd look as big as possible. So of course there's the question of, well, what really happened? And you know, I will say, while I was not there, outlets like the New York Times were, and their photos point to a relatively low turnout. And notably, footage from C-SPAN, which live streamed the whole event, it backs that up. Right, but then it also brings us to the question of, well, does it really matter? And there, the answer is yeah, kind of. Because both MAGA and anti-Trump people, they want the biggest turnouts for their events, with many seeing that as a gauge for how the country is actually feeling right now. Especially when you pair it with Trump's current just abysmal polling. And actually, on the note of Trump, whether it's him ignoring the No King's Day protests or his reaction to them, we're now seeing that he's doubling down on ICE raids in a Truth Social post where he praised ICE officers while then adding that they are subjected to violence, harassment, and even threats from radical Democrat politicians, but then adding, nothing will stop us from executing our mission and fulfilling our mandate to the American people. So the biggest bomb from that announcement was ICE officers are herewith ordered by notice of this truth to do all in their power to achieve the very important goal of delivering the single largest mass deportation program in history. With Trump then going on to detail that this means increasing the efforts to deport people from America's largest cities. And in particular, he called out cities run by Democrats and in general bashed their policies, saying these radical left Democrats are sick of mind, hate our country, and actually want to destroy our inner cities, all of which led to claims that Trump just declared war on America's sanctuary cities, authorizing what he calls the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history. So that is, Trump supporters claimed that calling it a war on sanctuary cities was inflammatory and saying that Trump was just trying to enforce immigration laws. However, he's also apparently only enforcing some of them, because as we talked about last Thursday, Trump ordered ICE to stop conducting raids on farms, hotels, meatpacking plants, and restaurants. And that coming after industry leaders, who are often key Trump allies, complained that he was gutting their workforce of longtime stable employees. So you also have some wondering how long these raids will actually go for. Because despite Trump claiming that ICE and other immigration agencies have the federal government's unwavering support, we're seeing news this morning that apparently all these raids are costing a fortune. And in fact, so much so that the agency is reportedly broke, with one estimate claiming that they're $1 billion over budget already. So that actually then just fuels calls by Trump supporters that his big, beautiful bill needs to be passed, since it raises the budget for ICE by $75 billion over the next 5 years. And for now, while we wait to see all this play out, I gotta pass some questions off to you. What are your thoughts and reactions to the assassinations? What are your thoughts about the No King's Day protests that we saw across the country and Trump's parade? And finally, what are your thoughts about Trump's rant and latest immigration move? And then you've got more news in just a minute, but first, have you ever Googled your symptoms and you just convince yourself you've got 6 hours to live in a rare condition that only affects 3 Norwegian fishermen a year? Or maybe finally try to book a real doctor and the next available appointment is 3 months out, 3 countries away, and only takes your insurance if you sacrifice a goat under a blood moon. Because yeah, no thanks. But that is why I love today's sponsor, ZocDoc, aka the sanity-preserving way to find and book an actual doctor who actually takes your insurance. Because ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. No fax machines, no holding music, no gatekeeping receptionist who sounds like he just ruined her day. Over 100,000 docs across every specialty: mental health, dental, urgent care, dermatology, and more. You can also filter by location, insurance, availability, and even patient reviews, so you're not walking into a mystery appointment. And many doctors, they have appointments within 24 to 72 hours, and some even same day. You know, I've used it, and it's just stupid easy. Honestly, it made me wonder why every other health system is still stuck in the Stone Age. So stop putting off that appointment. You know the one. Go to ZocDoc.com/Phil or scan the QR code to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/Phil, ZocDoc.com/Phil. But then from that, next up today, this situation between Israel and Iran, it's getting out of control, and if and to what extent the U.S. gets involved, it may decide how all of it plays out. But to really unpack this whole situation, we gotta take it day by day. Because all of this, it kicked off last Friday when Israel launched what has been described as an unprecedented attack against Iran, striking nuclear and military facilities as well as taking out some of the country's most powerful men. We're talking people that reportedly included at least 10 military generals and a top advisor to the Ayatollah, along with at least 9 nuclear scientists. And notably, this coming shortly after Iran vowed to open a 3rd nuclear enrichment facility. And that being in response to the board of the UN's nuclear watchdog finding the country wasn't following all the rules. And since then, the Iranian parliament has actually started preparing a bill to straight up the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, which notably would make it the 2nd Middle Eastern state to not be part of the agreement after Israel. Right? Israel's already assumed to have a sizable nuclear arsenal, the existence of which it will neither confirm nor deny, but in any case, according to US and European officials, Israel appeared ready to attack even before all of that happened. Now with that attack, it has definitely damaged some of the above
some kind of glitch, sorry.
nuclear facilities, but it doesn't seem to have directly damaged centrifuges or enriched material buried deep underground, at least according to the IAEA and an analysis of satellite imagery by the Washington Post. And then, as far as the Iranian response, the country quickly hit back on Friday by launching a barrage of ballistic missiles, most of which were intercepted or shot down, notably with the help of defense systems operated by American military personnel, though it was actually a bit less help than Israel got last year when American air and sea assets also helped shoot down incoming Iranian missiles. And so then with that, you had U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stressing that the U.S. was not involved in Israeli assault. And so far, that appears to have continued to be the case, with the back and forth continuing into Saturday and Sunday. And there, you saw a few more Iranian missiles making their way through Israeli defenses and killing several people, with the death toll also growing in Iran as we saw Israel expanding its campaign beyond nuclear and military targets. And on Sunday night, you saw Israel attacking the world's largest natural gas field, which is in Iran, partially suspending production and igniting a fire. Then on Sunday, Israeli strikes reportedly hitting airports, electronics manufacturing plants, police stations, an airplane maintenance site, and an office that coordinated the capital's mosques. And as far as why many of those targets, you had one researcher who focuses on Middle East security claiming that by targeting electronics, aviation, and aerospace, Israel's attempting to focus focus on bottlenecks in various key industries that support Iran's nuclear, missile, drone, and air defense industry, saying that in doing so, Israel is not only disarming Iran, but also making it more difficult and more expensive for Iran to ever rearm. You also notably have others arguing that the expansion of Israel's war aims beyond nuclear and military facilities. It suggests that it's actually trying to bring about regime change. And actually, with that, you had Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu seemingly suggesting as much in a speech on Saturday, where he urged the people of Iran to stand up and let their voices be heard.
Our fight is with our common enemy, a murderous regime that both oppresses you and impoverishes you.
And with that, we've seen the attacks, of course, continuing into this week. Where today, for example, the Israeli military claiming to have achieved full aerial superiority over the skies of Tehran, with them also claiming to have precisely struck command centers belonging to Iran's Quds Force, which is an elite military and intelligence arm of the Revolutionary Guard, and it's a unit that's trained, armed, and funded groups including Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi. It's also believed to have been behind international plots to assassinate dissidents, smuggle weapons, and conduct espionage targeting U.S. and allied interests. You know, it wasn't surprising when you had Iran's Revolutionary Guard warning that further strikes against Israel would be more forceful, severe, precise, and destructive than previous ones. And then with that, you had Iranian missiles and drones striking Tel Aviv and Haifa, killing at least 8 people and injuring nearly 100 others, according to the Israeli Prime Minister's office. Then the Israeli Defense Minister is saying in response, the arrogant dictator of Tehran has become a cowardly murderer who targets a civilian home front in Israel to deter the IDF from continuing the attack that is collapsing its capabilities. And then seemingly threatening to target the civilian home front in Iran, saying the residents of Tehran will pay the price and soon. So we then issued a separate statement insisting that Israel had no intention of deliberately harming the city's residents. So the reality is, so far, civilians have been bearing the brunt of this conflict on both sides. 24 people have reportedly been killed in Israel as reported, with all of them being civilians, and in Iran, civilians reportedly make up most of the at least 224 that Israel has killed so far. With Israel having the firepower advantage and better defensive capabilities, the death toll in Iran is, of course, not only going to get bigger, but is likely going to keep growing at a faster pace. Just today, you had the Israeli military announcing on social media that it would be targeting military infrastructure in a densely populated upscale residential area in eastern Iran and telling people to get out. But with that, one, internet connectivity in Iran has been periodically disrupted over the past few days, meaning that people without access can miss that warning. And two, one of the places hit was a state news broadcaster live on air, which the Israeli defense minister confirmed, saying, "We will strike the Iranian dictator everywhere," and then also labeling the TV channel as a source of propaganda and incitement. So for now, it seems like this is just going to keep escalating, though a big factor is, of course, if and whether the U.S. gets involved. Because in the past few months, we've seen reports that Trump's trying to hold Israel back so they could try and negotiate a deal with Iran regarding its nuclear program. And actually, it's been reported that at one point this weekend, Israel had an opportunity to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, but Trump put a stop to it. But there's now also signs that he's opening up to the idea that this will be resolved through violence, even if reluctantly. Because while he's continued talking about some deal materializing to end all of this, you also had him over the weekend saying,
Sometimes they have to fight it out.
and with that, he also told ABC News, quote, "It's possible we could get involved." But then sources telling outlets like CNN that while Trump hopes to avoid a prolonged conflict in the Middle East, some in his administration believe that the way to do that is by helping Israel conclude its objectives more quickly. And there, a very key thing is that the U.S. has something that Israel does not. Massive bunker buster bombs and an aircraft capable of carrying them that could potentially incapacitate Iran's underground nuclear facilities. For now, there's a lot of different ways this can play out. The U.S. getting involved is one, but the conflict also might rage on without American involvement, or maybe Iran will bow to pressure and make a deal. Time will tell, and in the meantime, I'd love to know your thoughts, your reactions, and your predictions in the comments down below. But then, next up from that in big news, a leaked memo from the Trump administration just revealed that a massive expansion of the travel ban targeting 36 more countries, including key U.S. partners, is being prepared now. And more specifically, that was what was outlined in a new State Department memo that was obtained by the Washington Post and Reuters that have been sent to U.S. diplomats who work with the countries this weekend. And a big thing to understand is that this proposal would mark a very dramatic expansion of the travel restrictions that were announced just earlier this month. Because as we talked about a few weeks ago, Trump recently enacted a travel ban prohibiting citizens from 12 different countries from traveling to the U.S., as well as imposing other restrictions on 7 additional nations. And specifically, you saw most of the impacted countries being in the Middle East and Africa, though a few were targeted in South America, the Caribbean, and Southeast Asia. With notably, more than half of the countries being Muslim majorities, which is why you had many experts saying that this is essentially a new version of the so-called Muslim ban that Trump enacted after taking office the first time in 2017. Now, as for this new memo, it appears largely to expand on the same general geographic themes as the restrictions rolled out earlier this month, with reportedly the new list including 25 African nations as well as some countries in the Caribbean, Central Asia, and several Pacific island nations. And then, very, very significantly here, this also includes important diplomatic partners like Egypt, which receives U.S. military aid, as well as Djibouti, which has the only permanent U.S. military base in Africa. But, the potential inclusion of Egypt is also very significant because, as we mentioned before, many people question why the country wasn't a part of the initial ban. Or because when the ban was first rolled out, you had the White House literally releasing a video of Trump announcing the move and citing national security concerns after an Egyptian national carried out a firebombing in Boulder, Colorado on a group gathered to raise attention for Israeli hostages. When asked why Egypt wasn't on the list when Trump was using the attack as a major justification for these travel restrictions, the president responded, because Egypt has been a country that we deal with very closely. They have things under control. But now it appears they're being bunched in with the other countries. Countries that notably the State Department reportedly specifically flagged as, quote, countries of concern that might be recommended for full or partial suspension of entry if they do not meet established benchmarks and requirements within 60 days. But then reportedly going on to identify the benchmarks it alleges that these countries are failing to meet. Things like claiming that some of the countries had no competent or cooperative central government authority to produce reliable identity documents or suffered from widespread government fraud. Also alleging that other nations had large numbers of citizens who overstayed their visas in the U.S. And then beyond that, the memo also claimed that some of the countries had nationals who were involved in anti-Semitic and anti-American activities in the United States. So notably, it did note that not all concerns pertain to all 36 countries. And then also saying that any of the listed concerns could be mitigated if the nations in question were willing to accept third country nationals who were removed from the U.S. But as far as, what happens next, in addition to the 60-day deadline, the memo also reportedly gave relevant U.S. diplomats until this coming Wednesday to provide an initial action plan for meeting the benchmarks. So there, according to the Post, it was not immediately clear when the proposed travel restrictions would be enforced if the demands were not met. And then, as far as how officials have responded to the leak, you had a State Department spokesperson telling reporters that the agency does not comment on internal deliberations or communications, but then added, we are constantly reevaluating policies to ensure the safety of Americans and that foreign nationals follow our laws. And so for now, we're going to have to wait to see what happens over the coming weeks and months, because we have to see if this leak, right, if it was more of a snapshot of something that is set in stone or kind of a still of rolling water, that things are still changing. But then to shift gears from that to a different kind of atmosphere, we're starting to wind down today's show. I want to talk to you about Dr. Michael Zolikoff. He's also known as Dr. Z. He's been practicing medicine in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Baltimore for decades now. Right? He's become beloved and well known by his patients for the philosophy that he lives and works by. Never deny people medical care because of cost.
Forget that dollar bill. Now, I'm going to see you no matter what. You walk in that door, you will be seen. You bring your grandma with you. I want to see her too.
But also, beyond the money thing, he's just perpetually upbeat, and he also makes himself available to his patients all the time. In the nearly 40 years that he's been practicing, he's never taken a real vacation. He tells every patient they can call him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. His patients, they say it's not just all talk. He's actually always available, and many of them even have his cell number. But, as much as he is considered a superhero in his community, that doesn't mean he's invincible. With him then recently being diagnosed with 2 different types of cancer, but even after that diagnosis, he kept his signature positive attitude while seeing patients and teaching. But then, making a bad situation worse, there was an issue with his Medicare paperwork, so he didn't have any coverage for his radiation treatment. Which one, yeah, what a horrible reality we live in where something like that could happen. Then 2, that is where his patients turned the tables and they rallied around him and said things like,
I'm like, let's fight. What can we do?
Dr. Z will not give up on you, so we damn sure ain't giving up on him.
Whatever needs to be done to save Dr. Z, we're going to do it collectively.
Which is exactly what happened. You had an old friend from high school starting a GoFundMe, which has since amassed over $200,000, with then Dr. Z saying,
you know what, I'm going to say something may seem crazy as heck. I'm thankful that I got cancer. Because I am the happiest man on the planet, no matter what the outcome. What we have shown and why we sitting in this table right now to show America, this is what you're about.
This is what you're about.
We about giving. I can't make it without them. No, can they make it without me?
And as of now, his prognosis is good, and the paperwork snafu with his insurance, it got sorted. So you've got Dr. Z saying that the leftover crowdfunded money is going to be funneled back into the community. But that is not where the story ends, because after seeing coverage of Dr. Z's story, U.S. Representative Kaise Mfume worked to get him recognized by Congress for the good that he's done in his community. With Mfume reading a tribute to Dr. Z in the congressional record so that his impact will be a part of written history forever, saying he's been an angel to the Baltimore community for so many years, right underneath the radar, not seeking recognition or acclaim. And adding, he has given over and over and over again of his time, his energy, his personality. He's giving so much of his hope to people who come to see a doctor looking for hope, quite frankly. So with all of that said, 1, you love to see a community rally around someone, and 2, Dr. Z, you absolutely earned the title of our BAMF of the day. You talk that talk, you walk that walk, and honestly, the world could use more doctors and just people like you. But that is where today's show is going to end for you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow because I got a brand new show for you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Love you. Mean it. Bye.
At least once a month, a major multiplayer title goes offline for good, and it's usually 3 different paths games take to reach this point. Number 1, the big CEO pulls the plug, giving devs no choice but to shut off servers. Number 2, the devs decide game is indeed finished, updates stop, and they instantly switch focus onto a new project.
For their next project, they are proud to announce No More Room in Hell 2.
And number 3, the saddest way a game can die is players leaving and moving on with their lives. That daily addiction quickly turns into more of a yearly visit to explore what was once a big chunk of their childhood.
I opened this game, got hit with the music, and I was like, oh man, I haven't heard that in 7 years. So for me, like, big old nostalgia blast.
8-bit MMO at its core is a 2D open-world sandbox game with a world that hasn't been reset since its release in 2012. The result of that is years of preserved history and storylines across a few 100-kilometer wide map. There was an active community of a couple hundred people at most playing 8-bit throughout its golden days. That was 2012 until rough.
There's a rhythm, you know, so a lot of people when they...
1 kill, please, that's all Twitter. Chivalry is one of the most popular hack-and-slash franchises, but like all fighting games, it's had its fair share of problems and drama. With the release of Mordhau in 2019, Chivalry Medieval Warfare saw almost all of its players leave for what was essentially a spiritual successor. Torn Banner then fought back with the release of Chivalry 2, bringing back thousands of players, but both development teams alike received pretty similar criticisms. And today, both games are on the decline. In April of 2024, Chivalry Medieval Warfare had its servers officially shut down by Torn Banner. This obviously didn't affect the community servers that are still running to this day, but a lot of players were understandably upset. It marked the end of an era. Some of these lots spent 10 years of their life on this game, just for Torn Banner to rip away all support to focus on Chivalry 2, except 2 months later they announced that will also no longer be receiving content updates. Despite numbers dropping, Chivalry 2 still sees a couple thousand players log on every day. I logged on at about midday and saw at least 30 odd servers full of players, not even playing team objective, but instead on a map called Juilliard. Hello, mate. Lovely. Thank you, mate. Okay, you can get off my body now. Has he just taken my head? This first day of play was all about learning the absolute basics, and any kill was just a bonus. Starting to feel like I'm not too good at the game. We're gonna kick this guy and then we're gonna run away. Pretend we didn't do it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. The game had 3 different basic attacks: overhand, underhand, and slash. You could also jab and kick, not to mention countering hits to retain stamina, but come on. I was still a while away from that. How do I look down? There we go. Okay, not a great start. We are being shot at, but it's okay. 1 kill, please. That's all How are you not getting shot? After I played a couple team objective games that didn't go terribly, I played around with the armor customization and then prepared for tomorrow by messaging some fellas on Discord. A couple days before I first tried Shiv, I sent a message to the leader of one of the game's most active clans, Bob. I had a lot to learn about this game, and these guys were the perfect answer. When people have...
It's like a junk world that Rats might have put together.
I also got to see some of Daisy's own projects, a commission build she did of a spaceship the size of my head, an event base that she opens up each Halloween and runs together with a few others, and then the chapel she made that genuinely looks like the real-life version of it. Also, wow, that looks incredible.
Thank you. I fell in love with the actual place and went, oh yeah, I can build a curved chapel when there's no assets in the game that are curved, sure, I can do that.
You
A lot of YouTubers, a lot of content creators, they get banned. Instagram influencers, TikTokers. But I don't think if you got banned off TikTok, your next step would be go to the headquarters and then cry banging on the front doors. This is what happened with a 2.5 million follower account TikToker. And I've taken a deep dive into this, and it really is just Pandora's box. I've spoken before about platforms generating the worst kinds of people, or at least congregating them. You know, you've got Kick, you've got TikTok with its absolute degeneracy, especially if you go on the TikTok Live tab. But rarely do we ever get a crossover of a TikToker becoming a Kick streamer. We've got people that are Twitch streamers and they get banned and they go over to Kick, but this is a very rare exception. This is a person who streams on Kick, but then also makes different content on TikTok. I'm not talking about everyone's TikTok where it's just regurgitating clips and highlights, which I'm incredibly shameful of, but I think this is a perfect example of a creator that could be the worst of both platforms put together. So clips have been resurfacing on TikTok from the creator Natalie Reynolds, and she's basically crying while on the phone to her dad at the TikTok office building, begging to be let in. She once had an account with 2.5 million followers, which for comparison to YouTube is about 1,500 subscribers. But memes aside, she was very big on TikTok. But if you compare that to her Kick, her live streaming platform, she only really has around 33,000 followers. So TikTok by far was her biggest platform. So who is Natalie Reynolds? Well, basically, she's a run-of-the-mill TikToker for the most part. If anything, she kind of gives off the same vibes as Bobby Althoff, the girl who did the podcast with Drake that was promptly deleted. Her rise to fame was, oh my god, guys, I'm pregnant. Lamau. I'm not joking, that was the entire thing.
I don't care what anyone says, there is nothing more embarrassing than walking around with one of these. You know what you did?
I am lead pregnant and I lead dance. I wish I could be lead pregnant and do lead dance and get like 5 million TikTok followers. Did I just say male pregnancy on this chat? Oh no, I shouldn't have said that. That's an actual kink, by the way. I've seen it. Now, Natalie blew up in 2022 from these kind of dance videos, lip syncing, you know, just the typical stuff that any tween would watch on TikTok and make you famous. And then she moved on to primarily doing comedy skits with her boyfriend. And just from that short description, seems pretty average. What's the problem here? Why did she get banned? And a lot of news outlets have actually jumped on this story because, you know, it's a woman crying. That would make you feel bad, right? All she wants is her TikTok account back. Now, this ban could have been a false strike. I mean, social media does this all the time. But the thing is, looking into it, I don't actually think this is real. The way she's acting to the camera, it's very convenient, you know, pointing around the corner. It feels really staged, like she's just got her boyfriend or something to basically film. And I doubt that's even the TikTok office building. It could just be any office building in the world. It does feel like a big publicity stunt to get her name out there because, you know, she was one of the biggest names on the platform and she had her platform taken away. And this is where the rabbit hole gets even more confusing because TikTok nor Natalie have actually confirmed or explained why they were banned. I'll be honest, it was hard to even find anyone talking about the ban apart from herself. I thought even the ban was faked, you know, like another publicity stunt, but apparently looking back in April, she made a Get Ready With Me video for Coachella. And in the video, she's seen wearing a Native American headdress, and then this guy makes a call-out post, and he's wearing an axolotl onesie, and then he tagged her in the video. And by clicking on the link to the account that was tagged, you can actually see that it was banned. I like as well how the guy in that video is nearly 5 years younger than me, and he's still acting like the biggest millennial imaginable wearing an axolotl onesie. Now, one of the game theories I've seen floating around for the reason behind her ban was plagiarism. And this accusation primarily concerns another big TikToker called Brooke Monk. Now, she's got nearly 40 million followers on the platform, and I'm still unsure of the kind of content she makes. It's just very kind of generic mainstream stuff that you'd probably be recommended as soon as you made a fresh account. I actually want to do a little quick review of the Brooke Monk TikTok. I want to see what the generation of Zoomers today are watching with 40 million followers. What kind of content are they consuming? Apparently it's Will Smith twice in a row. Told him I learned a new dance. She's just shaking her ass, and like every 9-year-old is just gonna have their first wet dream over that. Great stuff. Dude, I wish I could just boot up the camera in my living room and be like, okay, what am I doing today? I'm gonna lift weights on camera. This has 500,000 likes. It probably has like 10 million views. And because it's TikTok, she would have made $50 off it. Older sibling finally leaving their toxic household. So relatable. Okay. Wait, where's the punchline? What was the punchline? Is it because I got it muted so I don't get claimed? I don't get it. I actually don't get it. She waves at you? Okay. I'm not even joking. This is the current way to become mainstream. It's just relatable content. That's it. You just look at something when you're scrolling TikTok at 3 in the morning and you go, oh my God, that's so true. And then you press like, and then you scroll. I can't watch it. I can't even say anything funny. This just sucks. I cannot say anything funny about this. There's not even anything witty I can say. It's just noise. I know, you know what? Never mind. This one's funny. Look at this. Lamau. LMAO. When your significant other sends you le funny and they don't respond. Oh my God. That is so hecking relatable, guys. Oh my God. Let me when I listen le 20 video and he listen le none. We've literally just gone back to Rage Comics, man. Let me open le phone. Now I do recognize her boyfriend. Why'd I say it like that? But his name is Sam Dez. It's spelled like this. Sam Dez. Now, he did do this one TikTok that had an actually pretty intelligent premise. The premise was outfits I'd wear as different types of teachers. And the first one is just gym teacher, spelled J-I-M. And he just gives this like really hollow fluoride stare into the camera. Gym teacher. Is this, okay, is this like...
Gym teacher with J-I-M.
Is it?
Gym teacher. I'm a gym teacher.
Oh my God, he had to spell without autocorrect. It might be over. Okay, so history teacher is just like, you're just going golfing. Your hands are so pale, I thought you were wearing gloves. And this is me talking about paleness, by the way. Math teacher with the jacket. Yeah, that's definitely how a math teacher would dress. Not like a roadman outside a Tesco or anything in the UK. English teacher. It's just another shirt. I like how it's on a fan page as well. He was like, wait, that's not how you spell gym teacher? Oh no. This is gonna make me look very silly. Now, one of the videos that Natalie Reynolds actually posted while fake crying and getting a U in GCSE drama, she claims that a popular creator was so jealous of her that they purposely tried to sabotage her career.
A popular creator on this app is so jealous of me and my fans that she purposely tried to sabotage my TikTok career. I've worked so hard to make original content for you guys.
So, you're probably wondering, why are people pointing the finger at Brooke Monk? Well, it's because Natalie has actually been yoinking Brooke's video ideas and doing one-to-one recreations of them. Plagiarism, I get it, it's all over YouTube. H-Bomber did a very in-depth video talking about plagiarism, but like, you do not understand how bad plagiarism is on TikTok. It is probably worse than any other platform because the content is so short form, you don't really have time to watch it, give feedback, criticize. Who cares, bro? You watched 6 seconds, you forgot what you already saw, and you try to write something quirky that you stole from a previous video to try and get top comment. If you search up Natalie Reynolds Brooke Monk on TikTok, you'll actually see an ocean of comparison videos. And Natalie was really quick with it too. I found a comparison where there is a 16-minute difference in upload time.
What? I mean, it is the same thing though. They're the same breeders. Look, they're the same exact breeders.
15-minute difference in
except the people on the left, they kind of look like Kirkland brand ripoffs. And these people actually look like TikTok people. These people look like Kirkland brand ripoffs.
Upload time. I mean, sure, it doesn't look like the hardest video to copy, and they were probably already pre-existing trends. Not saying that Brooke invented these, but 16 minutes. I think there was a little bit of lurking going on there. I mean, even if you look at Brock Monk's comments, you can basically see people saying, here before Natalie Reynolds copies. Now, plagiarism doesn't actually warrant a ban on TikTok. Just people calling you out in the comments section. But people have actually theorized that the ban came from an old clip of Natalie resurfacing. In the clip, it shows Natalie live streaming on Kick, so you already know what to expect. And she's standing on this like pier jetty thing with another woman. This woman is actually homeless. And Natalie offers her $20 if she jumps into the lake. Natalie keeps egging her on until she dives in. Oh! She immediately starts denying that she ever asked the homeless woman to jump in the first place.
I didn't tell you to jump in.
At which point, some guy runs over, who I assume is security or someone actually helpful, and just told her to leave. And as she's walking away, she's just laughing about the whole situation. And you can hear the homeless lady screaming, saying that she can't swim. And as her and her orbiters are discussing the possibility that...
Oh my god, that's what happened. She convinced the homeless lady to jump in who didn't know how to swim for $20. Because she probably wanted that $20 so bad. She's like, well, that's like 2 meals.
Might drown, they will just keep laughing about it. Thankfully, the woman was actually saved by the fire department, who must have seen the stream going on and actually wanted to help.
It's a fire truck. Nah,
as they leave, the fire truck arrives.
Natalie.
You're evil. You're evil.
This thing is, all her friends can muster up in a droplet of conscience is, wait, this is bad.
Oh, this is bad.
No, stop. Seriously, don't stop. Please, you're actually freaking me out. Oh, please.
This is bad. You're about to be canceled. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but you are. This is bad. You're freaking me out. Yeah, well, it is bad. You're about to be canceled.
According to the Hollywood Fix, after they caught Natalie Reynolds leaving a courthouse, she announces that she's going to be sued for attempted murder by the homeless woman. Natalie very maturely states to the camera that she...
Attempted murder? Attempted murder because you jumped... No. You jumped into that lake. There's nothing you can do to her in court. You are under power of you. She was like, I'll pay you $20, and she probably did pay the $20. It doesn't matter.
That she went too far, and the woman who almost died is...
No, saying, hey, I'll pay you $20 to jump in that lake isn't going too far. That's not really going too far. Now, saying no because you don't have the $20 and becoming a crumb bum person who gets canceled on the internet, that's of low ilk. That's like one of the lowest looks I've ever seen on the internet, kind of. Especially for a hot girl.
To take advantage of the situation, and she was never in any real danger.
The lady that I told to jump into the lake,
yeah,
she's suing me for attempted murder.
This is really it.
This reminds me of that other funny thing we heard the other day. Right? It was H. John Benjamin trolling some idiot comedian. And he was like, is it true that you brought, is it true that you got tricked into dressing up as into Elvis to go to somebody's wedding? Which I still think is so funny. And the guy was like, well, yes, I did. And he was like, you're an idiot. He was like, is it really true that somebody tricked you into believing that it was a costume party at the wedding, and that you showed? Oh no, it was a mailman. It was like, did somebody trick you into dressing up as a mailman? Dressing up as a mailman.
You went too far this time.
Well, I don't think I went too far, but she's just trying to take advantage of the situation, acting like I tried to kill her and shit, so I don't know.
In fact, in the same video, she admits to cutting off her own ankle monitor because she wanted to join that Bop University. That was the thing I talked about in a video about the Kai Cenat Streamer University.
The Bop University.
Why don't you have your ankle monitor on?
Why don't you have your ankle monitor on? It's like the most horrible sentence. If you've never had one, you don't understand how funny that actually is. Why don't you have your ankle monitor on? She's like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. Why did you have your ankle monitor on? It's always a good question to ask. I cut it off.
Because I heard that Bop University was happening. I saw it on the Bop House, and I was like, I really want to join because I kind of want to, film with other Bops. So I cut it.
Oh my God, she was like, if it's career or jail, I choose career. Which, I mean, hey, I actually really respect that she understood that it was a crossroads, and she either needed to not go to jail by just not attending some streamer school, or do go to jail.
I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble.
I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble. What do you mean? What do you mean? I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble.
So I cut it off. I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble.
God damn it! Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Made a TikTok of her issuing.
Because you're beautiful. They don't do anything to you. It's insane. It's the power is actually insane. No. Like, you'd be surprised. I've seen it. I've seen the power it has over women. I've seen beauty affect women in crazy ways. It's like, dude, like real beauty, and she is a beautiful girl. Like to an absolute stranger, she is actually really a super beautiful girl and belongs in like Hollywood. She reminds me of an actress, and I can't remember her fucking name. Marilyn Manson's wife. What's her name? I can't think of. Rose McGowan. She's like Rose McGowan beautiful. So no judge in the land is going to prosecute her. It's insane. She knows it too. All she has to do is smile at the judge and be like, I'm so sorry. I'm not a bad person. I swear to God, I'm just ditzy and dumb or whatever. And it works every single time.
So I cut it off. I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble.
I didn't know I was gonna get in trouble for cutting off your goddamn ankle monitor. You didn't think so, huh? You thought you didn't think wee wee as the sirens go off in the distance. You don't think that might be a bad idea?
She later made a TikTok of her issuing.
Was the streamer house that day? Was it that day? Was it that day? Like, did you cut it off this morning and the FBI just hasn't chased you yet, or?
This by calling her and then filming a TikTok. The issue is, it's very obviously not the homeless woman, and just one of her mates tried to put on a woman voice.
Hi, this is Natalie.
Hello? Wait, listen to this again.
Tried to put on a woman voice.
Hello?
Hi, this is Natalie Reynolds from the Lake Situation. I know.
Oh my God, she's actually trying to lie like this. I'm gonna have fake people. I'm gonna have my friends pretend to be people. She probably paid somebody like $1,000 to do this. I would do it for $1,000 too. I'd just take the swing. I'd be like, what are they gonna do? They're gonna prosecute me for pretending to be this lady? Maybe that lady prosecutes him too. You gotta be careful doing stuff like this, because what if that lady prosecutes you for this? I think impersonating somebody is actually a felony. It actually is. You can't just pretend to be somebody else. That's actually, I'm fairly sure, impersonation is impersonating somebody. Is impersonating somebody. Is impersonating somebody a felony? Because I'm fairly sure it is. It could be a misdemeanor or a felony idea. They call this criminal impersonation. That's what she's actually had somebody do. She probably offered him like $3,000 or something like this, because she'd rather like lose that than lose her career or whatever.
No, I will be honest.
I want to hear it again. I want to hear him try to do it again. It's very funny.
I know.
The worst, sweetie. Oh my God, you're the worst girl ever, dude. Go back to the bar. You're so dumb. Go back to the bar. You're not pulling off this lady.
Her mates tried to put on a woman voice.
Hello. Like, and he's just yelled at everybody to shut the fuck up, and then they all put their beers. They all like get quiet and they put their beers down and stuff because the phone rings. And he's like, hello, like Miss Doubtfire.
Hi, this is Natalie Reynolds
from the Lake Situation. I want to make a band named The Lake Situation. From the Lake Situation.
The Lake Situation?
Ah! You can see her eyes. She's like, is this gonna work? Natalie from the lake.
I know.
Don't worry, sweetie.
No,
we all mess up.
Just looking into this, I thought this was all staged. Like, genuinely, like you do not understand how desperate some people are to get famous. They will, like, make up these entire scenarios that did not happen because negative attention is much better than no attention. But what seems to make it a little bit more legit is the fact that the Hollywood Fix, of all people, reported her, unless she somehow has contacts in the Hollywood Fix that they'd upload fake videos. That would kind of destroy the Hollywood Fix's reputation, but I will be honest, they didn't have that much reputation in the first place. Now, Natalie does actually have a pattern of interacting with homeless people while she's IRL streaming. Like, for example, in July 2024, she was actually seen mocking a homeless guy for his disability after he struggled to speak to her.
You want to walk around with me?
Natalie does also have this pattern of just being a genuinely awful and horrible person, and this is why I mentioned Pandora's Box in the beginning of the video.
I don't think she's awful or horrible. I think she comes up against awful and horrible and gives dumb person responses. Which is, I mean, in terms of, well, I don't know, in personifying that lady was pretty fucking evil. Like, that's like felony evil. That's like felony level of evil. She might actually be evil, maybe.
Because anytime I find a new bit of information, the rabbit hole just gets even deeper. The earliest thing I could find was her getting into some flack for basically doing a wild hunting stream on Kick. Now, I'm not going to get into the argument whether you think hunting animals is ethical or not. That's not the point of why I'm bringing this up. The point is, she did not prepare for this hunting at all. So when she tried to kill an animal, her spear wasn't prepared properly, so she left the animal writhing in pain. I think whether you hunt animals or not, everyone agrees that you want to...
She went spear hunting.
Do it in basically the most...
And she killed something. I mean, why not?
Humane way, so the animal has the least amount of suffering. There was even one source saying, unfortunately, Natalie's work with the spear wasn't exactly clean, leaving the animal writhing in pain and definitely not dead. And then in April 2024, there was an instance of her dragging...
And she traumatized a bunch of girls when she actually killed something.
A shark out of water. You know, considering every single shark species, there was an instance of the animal dragging a...
Oh, white girl with dreads. Yeah, maybe she might be a moron.
Shark out of water.
Oh no.
You know, considering every single...
Look at that smile as she basically like violates nature.
Exactly clean, leaving the animal writhing in pain and definitely not dead. And then
definitely not dead.
2024, there was an instance of her...
This is quite funny. I'm glad I watched this video.
Dragging a shark out of water.
Oh my god, this is so evil. Never mind, she's evil.
You know, considering every single shark species is basically endangered at this point, not really a great look. And then at one point, she decided to ride a shark as well, leading to her ass getting cut. And her misdeeds...
Wait, read it. But soon after they released it back into the water, she realized she had been harmed by the shark's sharp skin. There is cuts on my asshole, right where I was sitting on top of the shark. I am bleeding right by my butt. You can't make this kind of stuff up. It's so honest, it embarrasses me. She just talked about the torn skin in her butthole from riding a shark. I don't think she's kidding. I guess dumb...
At one point, she decided to ride a shark as well, leading to her ass getting cut. And her misdeeds didn't stop there. The next one you'll laugh at, Jesus, everyone's done this at this point. She did a crypto scam. So she did a pump and dump crypto scam. Like, the worst thing is this is so normalized, this isn't even worth doing like a video calling people out for anymore. So apparently she bought 50% of her own supply and sold her equity for $10,000. And the website she was trying to run this from was pump.fun, the same people that hijack Wendigoon and the same people that sell my favorite coin and of all time, the funny little green bird fella. Also, if you keep up with the man, the myth, the legend, that is Jack Doherty, you may recall in March of last year, there were some rumors floating around that Jack Doherty was getting certain underage people to sign up to OnlyFans so he could manage them. Now, I really don't like Jack Doherty. That is not a brave statement to make at all, but these rumors, they're just not true at all. We know this because the accusations came from Natalie Reynolds herself, and she actually went onto another YouTuber's channel, The Willie Mack Show, and he said, "I'm the one that interviewed Natalie on this story. These claims have zero backing. The allegations were made by Natalie Reynolds. The one girl she used as an example has never publicly complained about anything. She's refused to show me any information on anything. Complete moron." She also streamed herself doing public indecency, Lamau, and that was by showing up to a gym basically naked with her clothes painted onto her body. And when a guy in the gym expressed genuine discomfort and told her to get dressed, she her body. And when a guy Lamau, and that was by showing up to a gym basically naked with her clothes painted onto her body. And when a guy in the gym expressed genuine discomfort and told her to get dressed, she and her groupies basically surrounded him.
If you don't have clothes on, you need to be out of here. That's fine. I work in the industry enough to know. I work in the entertainment field.
He's saying you need to leave. Is that...
I mean, she's covered, so...
Yeah, she's covered.
She's covered, so we're not supposed to videotape her.
Also, I love the community note on this post. The man in the video is protecting the overall gym etiquette according to which you should wear clothes. And stop it all off.
Yeah.
Let's throw Neon in. We've already mentioned Jack Doherty. Neon's manager.
Yes,
now
it's
wants...
like kind of gross to imagine her butthole. Like let's say she decides to do benches or whatever. She wants to bench some weight. Now her butthole is just rubbing on. Now this is probably fine for dudes, but it's probably not fine for women, right? This is probably fine for dudes. They probably don't care. Although I kind of do. I don't want her butthole rubbing all over the seat, because that's kind of gross. It is kind of gross, you know. It's like what I mean.
To sue her. That is
it's a little gross, you know.
Information after she accused him of stealing money from her. So what's the moral of this story?
Like, you don't know. Maybe she. I don't know.
Women do be shopping.
Oh my god. Conspiracy that's really about to be true. Okay, guys, it's 1 in the morning. I'm going to stop now. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to sleep. I will be back here in some hours to play some more video games here. I'm going to stop and I'm going to say thank you for watching Skycatlive. There's a lot of funny stuff in that fucking video. Oh my god. Anyway, Twitch and YouTube, and click on the cast face to donate. Thank you so much for your time. I love you guys. Come click on the cast face to donate at Skycatlive. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for donations. Shout out to Rain Shani. That's one of my my corporation leaders. Gave me a sub today. Thank you so much for the wonderful support. I appreciate it. We shall publish it and make it memorial. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I'm going to stop here, and this video will end with a reminder that I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel. Come check out my YouTube. I love you guys. Everything I ever do is on my YouTube. All these videos and everything. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye.